But two,
So
how's
he
it going, man? It's good to get back. I feel like we had a little bit technical error. How's it going, bud?
doing all back in here with that. Glad we got that cleared up as well. But yeah, just got it kind of in here in the middle of Pixaban when we had that little bit of that break in there. But mages getting banned out through here in the Sobek ban as well. But pretty much standard bans.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense with the current itemization. Mages are going to be focused out. You have the Morgan, you have the Tiamat, you have the Soul. There's too many good items that really benefit all of those gods and then make them a handful. And now we see, another nod towards Guardians. We started with a Sobek and we have the Athena from UW Madison. Athena's just been consistently oppressive, being able to rotate as fast as possible, being able to set up for her team as much as possible. So it makes a lot of sense that UW Madison decided to focus out this Athena and make sure that there's not too much pressure coming out of the dual lane when it comes to the Guardian, the support.
Yeah, and just that flexibility of the roles, both those frontline roles of the solo and support, but also some good flexibility in that jungle. Got that global ultimate, so just a very Guardian to play, especially with that damage buff on that taunt, which is still an incredibly powerful ability overall. But as we now see that last ban in, not surprised to say Gilgamesh in a strong place right now. And
Yeah, I mean, the ability for Gilgamesh to play three different roles, whether it's solo, whether it's support, whether it's jungle, there's a lot of versatility. There's a lot of potential pressure that you can apply easily across the map. Gilgamesh, just the drop kick again, and we were talking about this with Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay is a newer character that people are still learning to play against. So with Gilgamesh still being newer, people don't play about against them as much or not seeing them as much competitively. It makes a lot of sense for them to ban out that god, so that way they put themselves in a better place. And now we see a Raijin being potentially hovered here for UW Madison.
yeah, with those drafts, kind of a lot of three mages being picked off one after the other right off the bat, all that usually end up playing in that mid lane. It's not surprising to see them look in that direction to lock in right away. And of course, Raijin with that cooldown pass still really powerful in there as they do lock that in. Some good damage, good sustain there. Doesn't have the best objective secure, but all in all, very solid, and I'd say top pick worthy mid laner.
I mean, you look at mid lane picks, you look at mage picks, and you go, what do I looking for, right? You always look for safe, free poke that allows you to do it from a distance, whether it be over walls or whether it be for objective secure. Raijin checks all those boxes, has the mobility to disengage. Raijin does one of the best team fighting responsibilities, as well as being able to help. Perform some support roles, some support role abilities, being able to taunt characters back in and allow his ADC to do a bunch of work, or potentially his assassin or jungler. But this is a nice little pickup. I love to see the Artemis that we've been seeing, especially with Hunter's Cowl being able to leverage that limited mobility that Artemis has, and then now with the Fafnir being able to buff that Artemis and allow the Artemis to do more damage, whether it be objectives or whether it be team fights in general. I mean, this is a great top two over here for Kennesaw for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I can see why the soul was banned away by Madison here, understanding that they might like to lean a little bit towards this, and that it's just super strong right now. Artemis, where maybe not the best in getting focused, is doesn't have that mobility, does have that two for that little bit of movement, but outside of that is very much like Morgan Le Fay, is that very much, not a lot of mobility, but that Fafnir with that coerce that he's able to go to his entire team, especially with that Artemis, that extra damage, and of course Artemis with that Tusky, that boy that can really affect team fights very much.
Yeah, Artemis really just being able to benefit from the current builds. We have this Hunter's Cowl being built, something that's just going to immediately boost your attack speed, especially with Artemis's two being able to be slow immune and being able to buff her attack speed as well. Really being able to take advantage of whether it be crit or silver branch, either way. Fafnir being able to help her develop those path towards more attack speed. Now we see a Cullen being picked up, hovered and immediately picked up by the UW Medicine and a Yamoja. I'm always really interested to see how Yamoja plays out in these games, because I really feel like she has a high skill cap. Not everybody can play her to the best ability that she's meant to be played at, but the players that do really succeed and have a great time throughout the game. And Cullen, again, he wants to be damaged. He wants to be able to build up his passive to be able to get into his rage, his berserk mode. So I mean, especially when you see a Fafnir and an Artemis being able to enable that, Cullen feels like he's going to thrive, and hopefully we see this Emoji be able to thrive as well.
Ooh, but this The front line I really like, especially shows a very around this Kikolan emoji. Emoji able to heal with that hail and shield, which is very much very good. Very hard characters for Fafnir to peel back. Fafnir very much a more set on did the disarm to try to set up his team. But this Odin would make life very difficult as if Kikolan's in his rage form, Raijin's the only one that really can consistently get out of that ult. As they do lock that in as the finish out this top phase.
Yeah, I mean, potentially it can really hamper what the Cullen wants to do, his mobility and get around. It does provide some type of safety for his Artemis if he wants to be able to, put everybody in a cage and Artemis can kind of just pop her to and disengage or at the same point re-engage. There is a good amount of healing we see here. I mean, between the emoji being able to heal up her back line or heal up her front line either or, the Odin kind of prevents that with his ultimate. So the mitigation of the healing is a good reason for the Odin, but also taking it away from potentially UW Madison where Artemis would be very susceptible to an Odin. Now that's not on the table and Kennesaw has it for themselves. So I'm very happy to see that. And Osiris coming out as the next ban from Kennesaw. They don't want to see the solo laner or the jungler potentially coming out with that Osiris. I like that pick, that
Yeah,
ban.
Osiris being really strong, and yeah, taking that Odin pick away as any sort of immobile backline, Umoja walls and Odin walls at the same time or separate times, just as a nightmare to have to try to work around. You're basically hoping your opponent just misuses their ability, and that's not where you want to play, especially at this level as we're now having this at the championship finals. Where you want to have to play your best there. But yeah, Osiris pickup would be really good, especially into that Yamoji and Odin. Having that passive fully stacked means he can now walk through walls, so very hard to lock down. And just that tether with that mitigation and just those spamming of abilities is in a really strong place. Camazot's taken away as UW Madison looks to get away the jungler, looking as they expect the Odin to go in the solo lane, as I would expect as well.
Yeah, I feel like, Camazotz is one of those characters that can really kind of stick with Artemis. He can go on Artemis, he can get kind of poked out, but then he pops up in his ult and he's able to do additional damage and finish off that Artemis. He has that annoyance for ADCs. He has that way of being able to kind of escape, get in, get out, and not really have to deal with too much. We see a Hercules band coming out from Kennesaw. Hercules can be a very high pressure god that can prevent Artemis from getting to her itemization stage, getting to her level stages where she really is effective. So I like the Hercules being able to no longer represent that high amount of pressure, even though Yamoja does that very well herself. Hercules sometimes can just be such a handful to try to deal with as a hunter. You just end up burning more mana than you really want. Additionally, it makes it as a nightmare, and you really you're only really relying as a hunter on your hunter's cowl now. There's not really a transcendence build anymore, so the MP5 that you're getting from hunter's cowl does not keep up with how annoying Hercules can be.
Yeah, and interesting though on those bands though is they already have the Kikullin and the Emoji, so these seem to kind of be like some flex picks, expecting either the Kikullin or these bands of the Osiris and Hercules to be going into the jungle. So maybe a little bit more target bands that Kennesaw knows something we don't. Maybe Madison jungler does like those warrior jungles, but Osiris still does have that anti-heal. But interesting to see what they're going to lead is now. They do have the one last band here that they're waiting on. I'm assuming it'd be a jungler, and it is. It's the Pele, so seem to be both jungle focused, sort of. I don't know. Kind of waiting here, but now Kennesaw on the clock because they're looking for their first pick here. I would hope it would go into their mid lane as a jungler. I like being that last pick as they do hover the Scylla, which interesting into these picks so far.
Yeah, man. I mean, I know what looks the way that it should be, but again, I have seen Kennesaw run Fafnir mid. I'm still sticking with where I know gods are typically played, and I'm still going to talk about that conversation because these guys will pick all over the place. And Genji, Collision, they both have great teams that can play anything. So very excited. But I mean, Scylla creates such an issue. It's so wild that she actually got to the 7th pick. CC immune ult, regardless of whatever nerf she might have had in the past, CC immune ult means that she has uninterrupted abilities to secure objectives and to secure kills. She's always going to be a hassle to deal with. Being able to drop her poke and be able to dash out and get away from it, she's just always going to be a problem. And the way that mage itemization is right now, it's so hard to not prioritize making sure that big damage mages are out of the picture.
Yeah, and with that Raijin as well, going in that Taiko drums make him very immobile. So just in that mid lane matchup too is going to be very difficult as Umoja's usual lockdown is that knockout, that wall, which Scylla with that I'm a monster movement speed, can just go around with that dash, go through. So she has some very good mobility specifically into this frontline matchup. I do worry about just getting outright just damage traded, as Cullen's got a lot of damage, especially when he's able to trade his Honor picked in, is it looks like it's going to be a Fenrir jungle that honestly into some of these pick has some serious scary potential as well.
It's clear Kennesaw had the right idea, man. They banned out this Hercules, they banned out this Gilgamesh, they banned out a lot. They banned out early game aggression, which ultimately we see UW Madison selecting to go that way with the On Her, with the Fenrir. They decided that they knew that UW Madison likes to play early game pressure, likes to get that lead, and Kennesaw started banning out some certain gods that allow them to not have to suffer early. Although UW Madison still picked up those gods between the On Her and the Fenrir, now we see this. Is this a Loki? We see a Loki being hovered by Kennesaw. I mean, man, now they're picking it. It's not troll. Loki is a pretty good spot right now. Not top jungler, not top aggression, but he can also be, flexed to the solo lane. Even though they do have this Odin, you can flip them either or. What do you think about these drafts that we have here? What do you think is who has the early advantage here?
I mean, honestly, I'm seeing this Loki has some pretty good abilities, specifically around that too, that with those ticks has the blind. And when you have On Her alt and Raijin alt that specifically you have to be able to see to hit and get your damage off, it can definitely cause some problems. But yeah, interesting that he goes to the Loki. There's a lot of pressure by this Cullen emojis that can really force out that Loki alt defensively. But hey, these are some undefeated teams. Maybe they know something we don't, but we won't keep you any longer. Supersonic Blur and Illy, you guys go ahead and take away the cast.
Well, thank you very much over on the desk. Like they mentioned, this is finals time here. Madison versus Kennesaw State. And looking at these two drafts, they're coming out of the gate swinging here, Illy.
Yeah, I really, really, really like both these drafts. I think UW Madison has picked a lot of characters that they really like to play. Fisha loves Fenrir. Coalition loves Raijin. Gator loves Yamoja. Venom has played the heck out of this On Her, and name me a solo laner that doesn't like running it down as Cullen. I sure can't. All five of these characters, this almost looks like a blind pick for Madison. On the other side, Kennesaw basically is a support player over in the solo lane, and he's slammed an Odin. I mean, anybody can play this pick. Not to take anything away from, basically, he's a great support player, but he is off-rolling, and I think that's something to pay attention to. And picking this Odin is a good shout-out for him. Loki, top 3 ban pretty consistently this year. Fafnir, rather, has been quite the priority in support, and so has the Artemis. The Scylla pick is the only one that's a little off meta, but is certainly nothing wrong with a late game mage.
Certainly not, and you and me saw yesterday on her own cast just how strong Scylla has the potential to be.
Yeah.
We'll have to see whether or not they get to that late stage. Like you mentioned, basically is off-rolling and opting for a slightly different build in the solo side, duo side. So a lot of this action is going on early, and I think that's pretty much what you'd expect when you have an On Her versus Artemis. This is a very, very old pairing, going back almost as far as the game goes back. So
yeah,
I would expect both of these players to be very well versed in this.
And it has notably shifted some recently, though. Artemis got a couple buffs. Her 3 now hits a little bit harder in the early game. You might think that's totally irrelevant, but it's not, because it helps you clear creeps. And that is important. And it helps the Artemis. Artemis has always had good fight, even in early lane with her passive. So I think the matchup is slightly evened out now, and I'm really not sure which character has the upper hand.
Well, good beat, Sunder for Sunder, now just trying to disengage off the damage. But look how much Venom has taken from this. Has got some potions to try and keep them topped up. But Norse has still come out the better of this trade for now, and it does look like you said, Kennesaw really want to try and bully where they can in these little chokeholds. But is that really something that they should be doing right now? I mean, it's Yamoja On Her. That seems pretty scary to try and take trades with.
It's always tricky to take trades into a healer, and Yamoja heals for free. I mean, you basically have a health pod in your auto attacks, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, it is certainly something you can look for, though. Fafnir, I keep saying Fenrir. Fafnir has good kill pressure with Sunder, Hammer, and Artemis in lane. So I don't mind taking trades. It shows confidence, and it's not like either team has gotten to the point where they're going to die yet in duo.
Certainly haven't, but got to keep an eye on whether or not any junglers try to take opportunity with that. Both of these junglers feel very much like they want to be able to start getting involved sooner rather than later, and their builds looking to try and emphasize that. We've got what looks to be like the stone cutting sword, very common for the Fenrir, but mace going into not ace here, could be a brawlers if they want to fight a duo, or maybe even a Jotuns.
I think the meta right now is probably to throw a Jotuns in, even against the Yemoja, but I could see the Brawlers. Both are very, very good. I think you do want a Brawlers eventually on Ace this game, on the Loki. He spreads it very well with Loki too. And the other thing you mentioned, the Stone Cutting Sword for Fenrir, makes a lot of sense. Could also be a delayed Serrated Edge. On that pick, which is the Twiggy build, I guess, that he's been throwing out in SPL lately. So I like all the builds so far. There's certainly nothing that it looks strange to me.
Certainly doesn't. I'm just going to do a quick check. This is definitely NA, right? These two teams are they're American
they're
universities,
North American
right?
teams.
Because we are now nearly 4 minutes in, and the most we've seen is a small scuffle over on this left-hand side. But now the Fenrir is going to try and get this party started. Brutalize is a brutal way to start things off. Level 5 means Ragnarok comes out almost instantly, but the underhanded tactics will get them away. Loki invis as well means they can slip on 5, but Madison come up first with first blood.
And I did say that Artemis got some buffs recently, but it is still a Hunter matchup, and if one character starts to get a significant lead, if Venomer's able to back for an Ichval when Norse is still stuck on bow tier 2, it could definitely go south very quickly for the Artemis.
Talking about going south, that's not where Madison heading. They're heading north, up into Kennesaw State's side of the map. Well, I suppose northwest-ish. But either way, they're trying to start with some aggression here. Little semi-rotations coming through from Gator already. This just, to me, seems that they want to leave Venom. They want to get Venom a foothold and then say, right, you can fight this Artemis, you know what you're doing, you'll be fine. I expect that'll happen once the Ichval comes online. But just to go into that gank then, nice little notice on the timing. Norse died and had like 10 seconds on beads, so that's really nice communication of just, you can fight now. And that's one of those weird things. As a hunter, I tend to find you get to that point where you're like, I've got 10 seconds on beads, I'll be fine, I can kind of push out, I'll be fine. And that's the time when you get ganked, and that's when it hurts the most.
Yeah, I mean, we saw one of those today in Game 2 of the SPL. I'm sure literally nobody else has noticed this, but Neilma died with about 2 seconds on his Terra beads to a Fenrir ult around a Fire Giant in one of those games. So, I mean, it happens to everybody, man. The beads are not up, and until they are up, you have to play like the beads don't exist, because they don't.
They may not exist, but they are up now, so hopefully no other ganks to follow up. It is going to be the Stone Cutting Sword finish now for the Fenrir, as a lot of these first items are coming online. So maybe a Hydra's here next. I was going to ask, this seems we wouldn't expect to see a Transcendence.
Could be.
Maybe it could be. It could be. It's Hydras, Heart Seekers, Transcendence, Dominance. Maybe?
It's not Dominance.
No, I can't even pretend it's going to be Dominance.
It can't be Dominance. I mean, I could legitimately understand the Transcendence or the Hydras. Probably Hydras. Fisha does like, I mean, he's building a little auto attack. It makes sense if he's going to be weaving autos consistently for stone cutting passive. Might as well get some Hydras procs in there too. It's certainly not bad.
Hey, damage is damage, and damage is good when you're on these kind of junglers. There's also a little bit of CDR, as Madison's going to start pulling this this Gold Fury Scorpion just to check on the damage right now, but not ace, no taste is that, and stops it. Meanwhile,
a gank!
Okay.
The Fafnir gank!
Solo side, Sorens ends up going over, seeing basically, and that's a great look for them. Meanwhile, over on the left-hand side, Artemis is able to pick up Venom, so across the map, Kennesaw just push-pull, and Madison are kind of left floating dead in the water.
Yeah, I mean, Norse manages to get another kill. He's now effectively on par with Venomer, and the off-roll solo laner facilitates a gank from his support, which isn't something you say every day, on Annika Cullen. So the Odin is able to at least stabilize in that lane. I mean, hopefully, basically at this point is just trying to get to the point where he can start rotating.
Loki going in for the ultimate there. One more shot he's going to need. Doesn't place the ultimate in the spot.
Got him.
But Nodace does pick it up because they walk on into the visions. Not a good look to see. I was wondering whether Nodace knew that he was still visible because Raiju reveals enemies on the map. So either way, could have been a little bit of trouble, but Kennesaw State there to back up their jungler. Gets another pick as 3-1 is the kills, and gold though still fairly even, so this has been a very scrappy game.
Yeah, 4 kills this far. You're talking about it looks like EU earlier. It certainly doesn't look that way anymore. But one thing to point out, it is 8 minutes in the game. Gorp and Forp are still alive, so we're not to the point where large leads are going to start blooming until those minor objectives are taken away to reveal the major ones beneath.
That is true, and are we expecting to see either one of these teams look towards these kind of objective plays? I mean,
both.
I'm looking at this like they both, like you said, both these teams want to try and get some leads
Another
early.
gank.
Talking about getting it. There's another gank going on the way. No way for this
Gone.
to get out of this, and he should just end up falling here, but no, he gets away. Salmon Leak comes out, basically takes that kill as the aim, as the backstab comes out. Bit unfortunate, but hey, it happens sometimes.
Fisher, though, trying to make his own magic happen. There goes Tusky. Not a barrel bore. That's a PCAT Porker. Nails Fisher right in the noggin, and he'll have to run away. Ultimate expended and beads from Fisher, so good play there by Norse.
Ooh, but look at this now. Venom maybe a level down, but beads and ult available to them shortly. One more basic to the back of the head. Norse will end up going down. Great punish there as Norse just walks into lane without the ult.
Yeah, I mean, Norse was just under a lot of pressure there for several reasons. He got jumped on by a Fenrir. He's like, yes, I can finally go back and kill some creeps. And then once you escape from the wolves, the lions jump out and try to eat you. And this one throws spears and is human-sized. I mean, that's one scary lion.
It certainly is, and without any support bacon to save you that time, you're not going to have any luck. Nodace now looking to try and revenge onto Venom. Not going to have any of it. The ult comes out, does force the beat, but look how low they are at this point.
They're both alive.
Oh, he's not alive anymore. Ended up putting in some actual damage coming through off the monster, off the mark. The on there. Underhanded tactics comes on. Outhammer just not in range. Kennesaw State.
I would like to formally apologize to Gingy because I definitely said, oh, he's dead now, and then Gingy whiffs like 6 autos and 3 abilities, including his ult. And that has to be my fault. There was nothing Gingy could have done. He was doomed to miss as soon as I...
hit his abilities.
Yeah, well, no, not when I told him he would. Once I tell him he's gonna hit his abilities, he's gonna miss.
It's unfortunate, but, you know, well, let's look at it on the positive. Gingy didn't miss. Venom just juked really, really well.
That's what happened.
Look, we're all allowed to choke. I'm sure someone on Kennesaw knows the Heimlich maneuver, and I guess by having the rest of the team there, it kind of worked out. But I do think, though, they were playing a little bit loose with their health bars. Not Ace getting out and then Gingy going in. It kind of pulled a lot from them. And
talk about playing loose, though.
Do well.
Neither team has killed Gorp and Forp. This drives me up the wall. I mean, I guess Forp is dead. Gorp is not dead yet, and unless we start to see basically an ace try to like push towards this Pyromancer, which they could do with Odin attack speed buff, I mean, you're not building a lead. You're just fighting for kills and maybe a buff invade here and there. I want to see these teams proactively try to set up something around a gold or a Pyromancer and really start building themselves a lead. Because right now, I mean, even though Kennesaw is up 2 kills, they're up. What is that? I can't do quick math. Help me, production man. Tell me the graphs.
We're gonna show you quick math.
There we go. It was about 700 gold.
600
yep,
to 304.
I did that in my head.
Yes. Add that over, so there you go. It's about 700. Quick math. Or you could just look at the graph and yellow production. Either way.
That's what I choose to do. I choose to make other people do work for me so that I don't have to think.
True, but speaking on quick math side of things, the one thing that I've noticed with a lot of these hunter builds is you get some small changes coming through. The big one is RC getting some lifesteal. Yeah. It's a very expensive item for the rest of this bow build. So is that something that we should be seeing less of or more of? Why are we seeing this RC sometimes picked up and other times not?
Hunters are different, and I think Aussie works really well with On Her. On Her obviously getting 20 pen in his passive. That's another 15. 35 pen is not nothing. As actually, Fish is going to take the 1v1. Yeah, Not Ace loses this, I'm pretty sure. Fish is going to clean that one up. Even with the Hydras, Not Ace didn't get his ult off. Once you eat a full Fenrir Brutalize in the early game, I don't know if he's maxing his 2 or the Brutalize for Fisha, but I mean, you're just toast as Not Ace in that situation.
It's a lot of damage. It is a lot of damage, as you can see.
Max the Brutalize
Seething
first.
Howl.
Yep.
Seething Howl and Brutalize coming through. The
It's like 80 power once the 2 is maxed. That's silly.
It is. But don't forget as well, Brutalize has protections on it whilst you're channeling it. So
Oh, it
all
does.
that time that we saw that flurry of strikes go through and the little bit of dot
Wow.
damage come out, there was
Is
a
that a
little bit
good
of extra-
ability?
It is a good ability. Do you remember when it could crit?
No, I didn't play the game when that was the thing, thankfully. But I think it is
Lucky
the
you.
trans coming out for Fisher as we stare at
It
the
is, yeah.
Fenrir build some more. I mean, I don't hate this, right? It's a lot of power. You never have mana troubles again, and once you get this item stacked, it does give you 10% cooldown. Fenrir loves cooldown. If he goes a Pridwin and an Erendite, that's 40% right there.
And that'll be a fantastic look for them. And like you said, just the ability to stick around in the fights. If you've got that Yemoja to play through sustain, you want to take long fights, you want to be able to be threatening in the entire long fights, right?
Yes, absolutely. And Raiden's a character with lots of abilities, lots of cooldown, plus the sustain character from Yemoja, and the On Her building a little extra sustain as well. I mean, this is just good play from Madison. They see the Pyromancers up, Fish is lurking. We'll see if basically can steal, but I don't think there's much happening.
Basically, why would you go in such a situation? 1v4 drops the cage down and immediately pays with his life. That's a Pyromancer, buddy. If that was fire, sure. Throw your life away, stop them from dying, but we don't throw for Pyromancers. And the worst part is like you've been saying,
still alive.
this Goldside Scorpion was still alive. Kennesaw State cannot respond with anything over on this other side.
I don't mind basically looking for the steal. What I do dislike, though, is he burned beads for it as well. I mean, this is his saving grace if he gets ganked by a Fenrir. To be fair, he does have the Mystical plus the tier 2 Fizz D plus the Gaia, so he's pretty safe anyway. He blinked him.
Look at this.
Oh, no.
Fish knew they had their number. Not Ace is not able to get away from that one. Expends the blink, but Brutalize is just that good of an ability. He can follow through fairly quickly. And Madison now are looking much better in this situation. Though, surprisingly enough, they've only been able to accrue a 2,000 gold lead right now. I honestly am expecting to see them try and pressure more here.
It's going to come down to Gold Furies, and I think a lot of it will be on these two Hunters and how much damage that they can put out. Maybe once we see the Odibos finished for both ADCs, we might see more grouping around gold and more likelihood to fight. And maybe Kennesaw wants to wait until Soren on this Fafnir is able to get his Belt of Frenzy or Cursed on to help deal with the sustain from the Yemoja. A little man fight, though.
Hello, Brutalize and the Fenrir ult do come down. Desert Fury is there. Mist Hammer is not on target, so Venom ends up picking up a kill. Loki does be able to turn it around, and now they're going to try and reaggress in. I'm a monster. You did it again. You said it again. He's so dead, and he gets away with it. Kata comes on back in just to try and help heal. A little bit of the Riptide gets them back to safety, and now they can heal Venom. You really got to stop saying that. How much of Madison paid you to make to do this?
I'm not at liberty to say. Anyway, it is a Gold Fury pull. Basically has that rotated. They have a Fafnir 2 plus an Odin 3. This thing will burn. The Reginald to...
Still holding it. Why are they working this? They're still holding it. They are going to be able to grab it finally. And they now just looking to try and disengage. Spirit of Mortal Pain comes out, and it's on Madison to try and chase this down. They will find basically who's low, but they're going to try and peel it out. Is Soren's. They will be able to do a good enough job, but now it's Gingy who may be coming under fire. Members from Kennesaw State are going back in. Not Ace slips the net, finds Venom, and is now just trying to run away themselves. Kennesaw State have done a fantastic job coming away from this. Madison's the one trying to take the fight, and they held out just long enough to sneak in a kill themselves.
I mean, just good for Kennesaw, right? They hold The Gold Fury long enough, Soren with the Sovereignty Rush basically takes no damage from the objective, and neither does basically with Mystical plus Breastplate on the Odin, plus an Odin Shield. They can tank that Gold Fury to Kingdom Come. They just have to make sure that the Raijin isn't in range to secure, which is why they just hold it while the Raijin can't kill it. They wait for Collision to run out of his ultimate, and then they're able to secure with Bird Bomb Burst plus, I think, maybe a Scylla 2 or something. I'm not entirely sure. But I like it from Kennesaw. Ace somehow manages to make up for the 2 times Venomer's managed to escape with his life this game, sneaks through a little invisibility to finish off the line this time.
It was really nice work. We also saw basically just drop the cage as a zoning giant wall. Umoja ult comes down. Okay, you guys want to fight here. Here's a massive wall. If you want to fight, you can jump into the cage. I'm not going to say no. If I'm basically, I want my enemies to jump into the Odin ring, but it worked out reasonably well for Kennesaw, like you said. Not Ace being able to take that that sort of shortcut straight through with Invis, I believe wasn't in that real engagement, able to just slip back around. And that's the thing about Loki. If the fights do draw long, Loki gets to find the perfect position to cause a lot of trouble.
And that fight there, we're starting to see... Actually, maybe there's a 2v2 over here in duo. Norse under trouble from Fisha. There's the boar coming out. Desert's Fury, as Venomer manages to live again. The skin of his teeth.
He's definitely dead. He's 100% dead in this instance.
100%.
Out comes the aim strike from the Loki. The Flurry will be able to grab that, and that's another good pick for them. Now the Fafnir is going to try and lead a charge in over on the left-hand side. Norse, however, is just going to go ahead and grab the Draugr for whatever that's worth. But Kennesaw State, they've got all 5 members over this side of the map. Be surprised if they want to keep pushing this. It's only a tier 1 tower, but with the loop around from the back, Odin Cage comes on through. Umoja's stuck out in the middle of nowhere and gets the Phantom on a single player. That's a huge win for Kennesaw State here.
Yeah, and we're starting to see the reason this Odin pick was chosen, I believe, is actually not Ace under some fire. He might be down. Collision's going to claim him.
So could you explain why not Ace was there? I feel like the rest of Kennesaw State were just starting to back up at that point, but
sneaky
every
Loki
opportunity,
things.
Kennesaw State will try and be sneaky. They'll go ahead. It's the Artemis who's playing like the old Loki, split push things down, and hey, you got to take the best of any opportunity.
And that might have been why not Ace was in that jungle, to make sure that Norse didn't get rotated on by UW Madison as he was splitting up mid. But no, I mean, I'm pretty happy with...
perfect.
Oh no, Fish.
Oh, perfect. The trap was laid literally under the feet of the Pyromancer, forces Fish to disengage. But through the Umoja, UI Madison are able to pick this up. He stole that with the Moonstrike. Very cheeky play there from Madison.
We love that.
Still keeping the game about 2,000 gold in it.
Okay, SSB, I'm going to try one more time. Every time I start talking about the Odin pick, a fight starts. So this time, I think I'm safe. We're starting to see why this Odin was picked, and I think it's in response to the Umoja. I think Kennesaw predicted the Umoja pick, like I was talking about. This looks like a blind pick draft for Madison, so I'm sure Kennesaw knew that as well. They knew the Umoja was going to be picked. They gambled they'd get the Odin, and the wall into the... I mean, it's anti-heal, it's walls that Umoja can't get through, and it forces out this Phantom pick from UW Madison as well to stop Gator from being in a position to get picked before every fight. So I do like this Odin pick the more I think about it. And we'll see how it looks once we get into this next Gold Fury fight. UW Madison, though, still only about 1k gold down going in 20 minutes, so still an even match into the Gold Fury.
It certainly is, but Kennesaw State are slowly starting to ratchet up to that later stage of the game. Level 18 on this still already, and Loki with that CDR is more than comfortable starting up any engagement. Basically is so tanky on this Odin, like you mentioned. That Odin shield giving you a huge amount of HP, but then the protections making it even you sort of double dip on it, and now baiting members in. They will force the Phantom with the Odin Cage, just trying to get out as much poke as they can, and then just drop back and disengage. The Mojo on about 8%, but Raijin wants to go ahead and go in, taunting in a couple members, gets sundered, and it's UI Madison who are going to go over around the backside. Fafnir will be able to just about disengage. Gingy, though, is the first one to pick up a kill. I'm a Monster almost completely deletes out Venom. They will be looking to get chased away, beat out the slow. But Kennesaw State, they've got to be careful, know what they're chasing for here. Get that Fury, don't overextend anywhere else. They get the Primal Fury, lose no one, pick up 2, and really start driving home the lead they've got.
And Collision really looked for it there. The Raijin ult engage, as soon as he saw Not Ace was in a position where he could get hit by that Raijin ult, he just kind of commits, and Gator comes in with a really good Umoja wall as well. Rerum blinks in, Fisha tries to follow, but the damage was just too much. Genji coming in with a really good Scylla ult onto Venomer, forcing him out of the fight with very little damage output available for the Hunter player. So, well played by Kennesaw, but it could have been a really good engage from UW Madison, so all hope is not lost.
It's not. I gotta go to the Caledonian Boar on that. The support Bacon just able to ping pong through everyone. As soon as Norse gets dove in on, they are straight on the ult button. No beats, no Aegis, just ult. Get that whole team causing some trouble with that, with the stun, and then it enabled Gingy to come in and get those kills that they were able to end up picking up. Basically, also does a phenomenal job then following back up after the first engage with the ultimate. They disengage nicely, but as soon as Madison start trying to take the fight, they're looking for, right, how is this going? They're not super close to anyone else, so Madison never got the opportunity to find that huge sort of ult. We saw the Umoja ult come through, and it hit like 2 people at best in that spot, and that's just Kennesaw State playing so well with their positioning, as now they're going to try out for the Fire Giant here. Members are all aware of it, and everyone is still around. It's mostly just a bait to see what damage can be pulled off. Out comes the Cage, but oh, it's the Fenrir. They're looking to actually just burst down the Fire Giant. Kennesaw State will go ahead and grab it, and now the fight comes on through. Tusky around the back, deleting through many health bars at the back side of the fight, but it's not Ace who picks up one. Gingy gets another, and the rest of the members of Madison are trying to run out to the safety of their tier 2 towers, but I'm not even sure that's safe. Basically shows up, says it's not, and that's all she wrote for that. Fire Giant on all 5 members from Kennesaw State, and with only 2 members down, they could very well just siege the Phoenix.
Yeah, basically his ego doesn't need any help, but that was a really, really good Odin Cage. Blocks off the engage possibility from UW Madison's front line and forces them into an awkward engage in front of Fire.
That felt like really a desperado right there.
Yeah, I don't know that they should have contested that.
Situation. Now with only 1 member remaining, Alex may very well just be able to delete out the Raijin. They do so, like you said, this could just be game. Only the Umoja standing for now to try and defend, but they don't have the peel to save the Titan. Kennesaw State, in under 24 minutes, take game 1.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect UW Madison to try to contest that Phoenix, but I suppose with the Fafnir stem and the Odin stem, it's really hard to it's really easy for Kennesaw to just end the game there. I think a good performance all around from Kennesaw, but I would like to see in game 2 a little more pressure onto these early objectives. They look really comfortable waiting for team fights, but I think if UW Madison was able to be maybe a little more patient with engages and keep their front line alive a little bit longer, then that game could have swung. So I want to see them in a position to push early advantages a little more. Overall, well played, though, by Kennesaw. No real complaints.
It certainly was. And I got to look at Not Ace as well. The way this team kind of built itself together, like you mentioned, it was a little bit scrappy for the opening, but as soon as we started seeing those 5-man groups up, this team, everything starts making sense. You understand all these plays, the builds, how they work this. They were able to work as a 5-man unit in such a dominant fashion. Everyone, even at the plays where it's like, that looks a bit off or that looks a bit strange, it starts end up working out. I looked at that Odin Cage where it was just in the Fenrir, and I was like, oh, well, it's only hit Fenrir. That's not so great. But you turn around and say, that Fenrir can't come into this engagement now. The rest of the team can burn out the Fire Giant. They take Fire Giant, and then the rest of the team runs it down with the ults coming off through and off cooldown. They run it down and end up taking game 1 of this set, although it isn't all doom and gloom just yet. Still at least one more game that Madison have to go ahead and win. So we're going to go throw it over back to the desk to break this game down.
Sorry about that, guys. The wonderful cast. Thank you to Supersonic and Illy. Wonderful, wonderful cast to listen to. But Ted, we were kind of interested about that Loki last 4 words there. It kind of showed up there for that first game.
Yeah, I mean, Loki definitely made a big impact, and I think that Loki made an even bigger impact with the fact that Fenrir decided to go for the Transcendent second after the stone cutting. That means that Fenrir is spending a little bit more time farming, a little less time being annoying. But the Loki was able to rotate it a lot. Man, that was an interesting game for sure. To be 100% honest, I really think that Venom on that on her made some ridiculous jukes, made some ridiculous ability to stay alive and to survive when he was rotated upon. That Loki was being a nuisance, and so was Gingy on that Scylla. But Venom was still able to stay alive. It just seems like Venom is the starting ADC for UW Madison. It appears as though Norse may be potentially the sub. From what I know, I think Soren Lies is the starting ADC for Kennesaw. So potentially, they can take advantage of that ability of having a more familiar ADC in that role. But man, I feel like Venom didn't get to enjoy all of that juking and uh, uh, all of the being able to showcase how much he was missing those abilities from Kennesaw State, as his team was potentially the loser of that game.
Yeah, understands now with that kind of roster talking about that Artemis by that Fenrir. I think he was over there at least 4 or 5 times before any real objective had been pulled. But I think that's also kind of plays into why they had it there. I mean, he was able to juke and get away for so long. I mean, he lived for like he had a full combo of Artemis abilities and Fafnir abilities that he was able to get away from, and then Scylla, and he was able to juke all of that too. But I think the Raijin was a little bit later on those rotations, a little bit later from that Yemoja. So while he was able to do that 2v2, 2v3s, you can only live for so long before you just kind of get chased down. And
Yeah.
yeah, you got to shout out again for his abilities there, but also that Loki pick, able to come through, find that counter gank potential, not even having to really initiate, but just kind of follow up on Fenrir, who's usually kind of an early game beast and kind of had a little more impact early on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that Soren is playing this support role, so and basically is playing in the solo lane. So if anything, it looks like Donga isn't there as their normal starter in the solo lane, and don't make anybody think that I'm ignoring the ability and the damage that Norse put out on this Artemis. Artemis put out about almost close to 20k damage against Venom. So I'm not hating on the Artemis at all. I just, you have to, when you see an individual making plays as Venom did, you have to, show some love for him and really, he had an early game lead as an Anher is going to do, and he had the ability to really create a lot of pressure for his team. And it seemed as though his team wasn't able to really take advantage of that, which ultimately, made it so that they lost. I think. I feel like if you follow up with that on her pressure and try to focus down dual lane, maybe the game's a little bit different. You take advantage of that potentially more immobile Artemis rather than the on her, then it makes a lot more sense for you to potentially have a path towards winning. But yeah. Both teams had a great game. It just, you saw a lot of anti-heal coming out at Kennesaw State. You saw Genji with the Divine Ruin. You saw their jungler coming out with the Brawler's Beatstick, being able to mitigate what both. We saw Soul Gem come out of the Raijin, I believe, and we also saw, we had a emoji in the game. So being able to mitigate what they want to do with those anti-heal items, they really had an idea of, hey, let's mitigate the enemy team's objectives and then be able to force it down and end the game as fast as possible.
Yeah, and as we looks like we're ready to go ahead and get into picks and bans for that game too. And like you mentioned, they played this really well. So as UW Madison, you're up for that first pick here going into game two. Do you really think there's anything in particular they need to look to maybe take away either by picking or banning away from Kennesaw?
I mean, their bans before were pretty meta. It's very hard to say that they need to ban one thing or the other. Um, you know, Scylla's always going to be a handful. That Fafnir is always going to be a handful. It's very hard to focus on one particular guy or the other. That Loki was also a handful. So do you focus on banning out the Loki? He was able to rotate quickly and really cause a lot of influence on team fights and objectives and such. I think that they had somewhat of a healing comp, and maybe they need to adjust their direction on which way they want to play, whether it be a high, heavy pressure early, so that way they don't fall behind, or potentially they decide that they're going to be a full all-out healer squad. You go like a Guan, Yamoja, you go either whether it be a Cupid or a Ra, whether you want to try to develop one way where you are a second half team fight, or you develop the fact where you are an early game team and you're going to match your early game aggression and decide that they can't force you around early on.
Yeah, find a little bit more of an identity in that comp is kind of split. And we also did in that first one see Ravana and Pele drafted banned in that second phase by Madison. So wouldn't be surprised to see if maybe Loki gets banned out in that second phase. But as you mentioned for the first game, kind of all meta bans. And as we follow game two, maybe not the same order, but Sobek, Sol, Morgan Le Fay all kind of say holding the same bans as we had for game one. So nothing really changed up quite yet.
Right, yeah, so Sobek is going to have that ability to put people out of position really easily. Also, potentially putting himself out of a position, but he has the ability to ult out and not have such a consequence there. Morgan Le Fay, again, not a lot of playtime. People don't want to play against her. She does have a good amount of abilities, good amount of utility. Soul, immediately you think of early game pressure. Immediately, UW Madison, you do not want to fight against early game pressure because you found not as much success when you did have to last game. I mean, even though you had the on her, but if you're trying to match early game for early game, you want to get the soul get out of there. And then Tiamat, I mean, again, we're talking about a ton of abilities. You have so many different things you can do. You have knockups. You have ranged poke. You have such a tanky second stance where it takes so much for you to die. Get those gods out of the picture, and that way, you don't have to fight against it. You don't have to worry about it throughout the game.
Yeah, that's a lot of that pressure here. And again, band still consistent with game one that we're seeing, so nothing changed there. Interesting to see if they go back to that Raijin who, like I mentioned before, was kind of getting out rotated by this Scylla and having a lot more pressure, or not having as much pressure, I should say, as that Scylla. So it'd be interesting if they see that that's still ban worthy, maybe opt to stake, maybe away that Fafnir, or maybe even the Scylla away. I think Scylla's still in a place where you can top pick her. And of course, we still have the last ban here from Kennesaw to see if they change anything up. And as I say that, they do the Gilgamesh. So exact same picks and bans, or pick bans by both teams here. So curious to see where they go with this first pick. Do they go back to that mage, maybe another mage, or do they just go a entirely different direction? Interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, if you have a great team fighting mage that you can pick in the top number one, it makes a lot of sense. You just have that ability to really utilize all those items that are so valuable right now. Whether it be Vampiric Shroud, whether it be Conduit Gem. I mean, there's all the starters for mages are really good, but Vampiric Shroud seeing a lot more vision with the amount of lifesteal and the more sustain that you have with it in right now. So I feel like mages, and as we see UW Madison hovering this region, mages being the primary focus at the top makes a total lot of sense. Athena, we did see Athena get banned by UW Madison, which makes even more sense. It can be jungle, can be solo, can be support. That they just, you don't want that utility to be set up for the enemy team. And then as well as Gilgamesh, who, still seems a little bit overtuned, but, we'll see what Hi-Rez thinks about it when the next patch update comes out.
Yeah, well, as we go on those picks, UW Madison decide to stick with that Raijin. While I mentioned did do strong as far as that laning phase, did kind of have a little bit of lacking there as far as when we got to those team fights and rotations. But interesting to see Kennesaw go a little bit different. They keep the Fafnir, but they decide to go that Wukong. If I'm Madison here, I'm thinking, oh, now we can get Antiel without having to deal with Odin. I'm thinking Yamoja again for game two right here.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. You look at this Wukong, we look at this Fafnir, they really do present that second half team fight type build, type comp, right? So some Wukong goes in, takes a ton of damage, gets beads, gets Aegises, gets ultimates, and is able to go up into his cloud and just decide that he wants to heal up and re-engage. Same thing with Fafnir. Fafnir can kind of jump in and also absorb a lot of damage, but then go into his ultimate, be 100% damage immune, and then be able to continue to re-engage and allow his team to fight forward. It looks like Kennesaw is kind of developing somewhat of a second half team fight. There's not a ton of healing like directly, but they do have the ability to continue to fight after the original burst is gone.
They're keeping that dive identity. Wukong, very hard to peel, goes into that somersault cloud, able to land down, has a lot of different disrupt. Same thing with Fafnir, as we saw in game one, able to just jump in, transform, jump again. But Madison taking a little bit, rather than going for the healing, they decide to go a little bit more of that anti-heal, going, hey, that worked great for you guys. Can we have that? As they snag the Odin. They do keep the Fenrir, though, which might not have had the best gank potential, but that seemed a little bit more matchup dependent, as Artemis has some great self-heal with that boar, having, actives up as possible, as well as those traps that we saw have huge value, specifically against that Fenrir. So since they got that Fenrir, I'd love to see them kind of ban that direction here as we wait on Tsukiyomi might being the last pick here for Kennesaw.
Yeah, to be 100% honest, I'm not a big fan of this Odin being in the top 3 or top 6 potentially. I feel like he's definitely one of those guys that you kind of counter the enemy team. You see they don't have a ton of jumps, so you don't have a bunch of leaps. They don't have the ability to get out of your Odin. Now that you pick it in the top 4, you make it so that the enemy team knows, hey, we need to have those things. Fenrir is not as bad, right? Because Fenrir can present a problem, whether it be jungle or support. He can provide a lot of issues. I mean, the only real counters to him or maybe a Ganesh or maybe like an Awilish, but at the same point you can play around those a little bit, but the Odin really doesn't seem like the best idea in the top 4. But this Scylla, again, putting it back on Gingy, you gotta feel confident with what he was able to do in the first game to be able to be successful in the second game, especially having the same matchup he had in the first game against this Raijin.
Yeah, wasn't able to lock down Venom. As we know, Caster had a couple of points there we thought he was dead made through, but overall, good objective secure on a lot of those fights, was able to do some good AoE damage and just play the mages he was supposed to play. So I'm glad to see him have that, of course, and now with the Odin now on the other side, that dash able to get through. I am worried, though, because normally in the game we saw last time, by Madison to deal with that, which usually means that you have to keep your team around the person that has Phantom. And now with this, if Wukong doesn't go Phantom and it's just on the Fafnir, he kind of gets left on an island if he gets caught in that cage. Sure, he can go in that Somersault Cloud, but if I'm getting now alt for alt, cage for Somersault Cloud, I think I'm kind of favoring the Odin, just having that little bit lower cooldown. But I do like, as we go into these second phase of bans, that there's already some adapting. That Artemis, that was such a big problem for Madison, they ban right away. Kennesaw, kind of sitting on top with the first win, just deciding to ban that Ymir, and they do lock in now that Yemoja, banning that away, seeing that, hey, we don't want that healing, you guys have the Odin, we're going to respect that, take that away from you for game 2.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think that UW Madison's idea here, this Artemis, is going, hey, like they have the counter to her. They have Odin, right? So like they can lock her down and make it so that like she can't go anywhere. But I feel like UW Madison's playing the long game and going, we want to see what else is in your wheelhouse, what else you're able to be productive with, because we have to go to, this is a 5-game set, right? This is only the second game. They want to go, what do we need to be aware of when we go into game 3, potentially if we win or we lose? We want to know what we have to fight against and what are your strongest gods. So we're going to take out the last ones that you played when it comes to this Artemis. I think Kennesaw is doing somewhat of the same with this Yemoja, because the Yemoja was impactful, but it wasn't the strongest god in the entire game. We see UW Madison also being out this Camazotz. I think that they're trying to say, hey, we want to see your hand without you showing us your hand, and the only way for us to do that is to create these bans and make these things, take them out of your hands to be able to select. And that's really what UW Madison Kennesaw are kind of doing to each other, because they know it's a longer set than normal. So it creates more variety, and it allows them to really understand where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are.
Yeah, well, interesting to see this hover here, and that it is now locked in for the Thanatos. I was surprised to see the Camazotz. I understand it's got that leap to get out of Odin Cage. It's also got great chase down, that while Fenrir has that movement speed, that Bat Out of Hell has some great chase down and some very unpeelable damage that can be really difficult for this backline. But this Thanatos, while they have the Scylla late game, they're kind of bridging it, kind of liking this pick by the Thanatos here. Try to make sure to that late game again in game 2.
Yeah, as Kennesaw, you have to be frustrated with how many times that Venom was able to get away and at such a low HP. That's not going to happen with Thanatos. With Thanatos being the pick, you're not going to have to worry
That
about.
execute.
Yeah, he's able to just come in and make sure that your ADC doesn't survive and isn't able to come back and farm as much as he was able to. I think that's really what kept him in the game. So sometimes surviving the dive, surviving what the enemy team was trying to put you back in the base and the fountain, and not allow you to come back as quick as possible and farm up on those minions and those buffs. Being able to put someone away for a certain amount of time, it means that you get to objective faster and stuff. I do like this Heimdallr, though. Heimdallr does present also a lot of safety if you definitely harness his Bifrost properly, being able to be in and out of situations safely. And this Kuzenbo presents a lot of appeal for UW Madison. I definitely think that the Kuzenbo is a lot different than the Emoja from last game. Doesn't have the healing, does have somewhat of the peel, does have somewhat of the cooldown, so he can get like his pushes around and stuff. It's more of a setup than it is the healing setup that Emoja presents. But maybe if the Heimdallr can play as safe as he did last game and really focus on using his Bifrost properly, UW Madison might have a better time with him over the Anhur.
Yeah, and something else with that Kuzenbo is it's very hard peel just disruption. He's got that spin to win where he just is knocking everyone everywhere. That as personally as a Thanatos, that's just going to be so annoying to deal with. But this Chiron, though, there's not a whole lot of peel with just that ultimate that he can shoot through. He's got some good damage to deal. I do like this backline for Kennesaw. Scylla and Chiron are both going to be able to just basically out-trade again. Not a whole lot of safety around this Odin for that backline, especially if that Scylla dash is down. So I think we need to really see them play around this Odin cage and really capitalize off that, because if they catch the Thanatos, he's got to alt Scylla if that dash down there, and Chiron, he's basically just going to have to turn that cage into a cage fight and fight his way out.
Yeah, I think Chiron's kind of an ego play by Kennesaw. They have an Odin. Chiron can't do anything with an Odin ult. But I feel as though that they just are confident with that play. There's not a ton of knockups to really be immune to, as Chiron as his dash is now immune to knockups. Maybe the Heimdallr, but at the same point, I mean, Fenrir can kind of still lock him down. But at the same point, like, you're last picking a Chiron and you have an Odin in the game. Where do you go other than your ult and then hope that your team is there as fast as possible? So we'll see how this works out. I'm really excited. I mean, Kennesaw has been playing really great, and so does UW Madison. The different formation of teams should make this very interesting compared to last game.
Yeah, definitely. Same thing as far as their comps go, but we'll send it back over to Illy and Supersonic Blur. Are we going to have the first team take their second loss in a set, or are we going to have it even up 1-1? Guys, take it away.
It's going to be a rough one for sure. Both Madison and Kennesaw State again coming out with some incredibly strong looking drafts here. Supersonic Blur and Illy over for how this game is going to come down to it. But the biggest difference in my eyes is Nodace on this Thanatos. This is a kill god, not set up kill god.
I mean, he kind of played Loki as a kill god as well, but it is a lot different. There's no invisibility. It's a lot more personally dangerous for Nodace. Easier to lock down is the Thanatos for sure. For me, it's that UW Madison identified the trouble they had dealing with the Odin and picked it away. That is the highlight of the draft for me. I think no matter how much Riram likes Odin or doesn't like Odin, this character was a problem last game, and I'm happy to see they won't have to deal with it this game.
I mean, if you can't ban it, pick it. You're almost using your picks as pseudo bans here, but it's not as if the Odin is a bad god to be trying to pick anyway, like you said. So a nice strong look here, as once again basically opting for a slightly off start for solo, but this just screams safety from basically, like we saw it last game. It's just, I want to be tanky, I want to get to the team fight stage. This is exactly what this build does. Warriors Axe, I want to sustain and have safety. Into a rush for Soul Eater, I want to sustain and not die in lane.
Right. Wukong is, for lack of a better word, really easy to play. I mean, you can just you won the wave and then you run away, and if you want to rotate, you won the wave and then you rotate. It's about as soul lane as you get, and it's an easy dive. It's safe on the dive. It's just a good pick. The other thing for me is Venomer's had some very good plays on Heimdall in the past, so I'm interested to see this pick. I know it's something he likes. If the Anhur doesn't work, let's go to the next one, and that's the Heim.
Interesting. I was looking at this wondering if we have a spec. Never mind. Hold on a second. Junji and Nodace putting a huge amount of damage into Collision there. No respect on the damage output potential. First Sunder getting used, but Venom is more than comfortable in this current lane position. But getting back to the point I was asking, as we see a lot of pressure again from Kennesaw State. But Venom here and Norse, these two builds look kind of backwards to me.
I kind of agree. To me, the Chiron is more likely to use the Bluestone, and the Cowl bow build is more likely to be used on the Heimdall. To me, both would be bow builds in the current meta, as
There's a blink.
Well, that's casually first blood, not ace. Another gank on the solo lane. With 2 games in a row, we've seen Kennesaw run to the solo to get the first kill.
And it works out nicely for them in this situation. Second verse, the same as the first. So why play it any differently? Now you've given basically a free lane at this point. Sure, Odin's not exactly someone you can hard punish when it comes to stripping away farm or pushing minions into tower, but hey, if basically gets to start stacking soul leaders sooner, then I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, Wukong is one of those characters that can be oppressive from ahead, and that can be any character in the game at all that can be oppressive from ahead. But I know basically is, as an ex-support player, no, I'm harping on it, but he was a big part of the shot calling for his team at Georgia. So now that he is on this Kennesaw team for this league, it's important for him to get involved as soon as he can.
It is, and that's one of the things you mentioned. It's going to be very easy, very strong from ahead. You look at what there is. There's the Fenrir Raijin who want to be aggressive. If they now have a fear of, is Wukong going to rotate? Can we afford to stick around long enough? Then that can have a dampening effect on what Madison are able to do. And then you've got to ask, okay, do we send someone over to the solo lane? Which does look like what Fish is going to try and do, but I think it's less about setting up a fight and more just trying to help Riem stay alive at this point. Ops against it, and so we'll just walk back on over, which gives Kennesaw State just more time to free farm here.
Oracle is secured, and maybe a fight over the mid camps as Collision and Fisha.
Resulting. It's going for it, finds one, there's the beads, looking to turn it around, and Genji shuts down the Taiko drums. Collision, and no way, no how able to get out of that. Beads and ult used. Great target collapse from Kennesaw State.
Yeah, contest at the mid camps. They baited them in. Collision thought he saw something, and it was actually just not Ace, not Ace's shadow passing over the sun as he dives in. Not the first blood for the Thanatos, but the second blood after the assist. So we'll take that. And good first kill by Genji as well.
A lot of damage from Gator there, opting to use one of the Sunders. And as well, interestingly, we saw this last game, but never got the chance to talk about it, has upgraded the Sunder early. Didn't start with it, but first back went and got it upgraded. But we never saw him get a chance to really be aggressive with it.
The upgraded Sunder in this current patch is less valuable than it was previously. Previously, Sunder, you didn't get the increased damage effect until you upgraded it, so it was almost useless until you've upgraded it. It's just like another ability with a really long cooldown.
Right.
The current iteration, you don't need to upgrade it to get the damage increase, but that stat does increase once you've upgraded. If he was at a point where he didn't think he was going to back until he had enough for Thebes anyway, then the upgrade is fine.
Oh no, ult comes through. I thought he wanted to blink ult. Not Ace is able to pick up Fish. That's just unfortunate to see in that spot. Great support coming through from Not Ace, and now we're going to see over on the left-hand side some pressure going the way of Gator. This is, again, one of those games where it feels scrappy, but this time Kennesaw seem to have got they've honed it out from the first game. Still not seen any objectives just yet, but 0-3 in 6 minutes, and they've got that 2k gold lead that took them a lot longer than in the last game.
And they still have this Fafnir pick, which was hard to deal with because it helped them burn objectives once they actually did get to the objectives. So Soren on this Fafnir will likely have a similar effect. I'd like to see Kennesaw do the Forp and Gorp earlier this game, but I think I've beat that dead horse a few times too many, so I'll let it go.
I mean, you may have beat that dead horse, but I tell you one thing Kennesaw haven't beaten, and that's these oh, I almost said Gorp and Forp there. Ugh, no. This Gold Fury and Fire Giant Greater Scorpions. Yes, I refuse to call them Gorp and Forp.
All right, well, I mean, you can stand in solidarity with that, and I'll keep Gorpin and Forpin.
You do that. You 100% do that. I have no qualms about that.
Hashtag Team Gorp.
Now on a little bit of a run here. Madison try and start some kind of engagement, but again, Kennesaw State, despite how aggressive they've been, every time Madison has tried to abuse that aggression, they've just immediately been able to disengage on it. Such strong players. Now we're going to see them go back on in, but the Brutalize does get shut out. Watery Grave might be enough. Fisher is going to be able to take down Norse. That's not too bad, puts Madison on the board.
Norse trying to get the last hit on Venomber before he got the back off because he saw the gank coming from Fisha. But Fish is able to get one gank down. Looks like he's going that same build, so I'd expect a trans again from him. I don't think we really saw the cooldown stacked effectively in the first game, but I still don't hate the build.
It's not too bad, like you said. And
Yoink.
with the Transcendence, it's going to help. And this is why you can't that's why you can't punish an Odin. What are you supposed to do? He's going to 2-1 and the wave is gone or the buff is gone. It's so difficult to punish Odin. They are a level down at this point, but it doesn't really matter. Now that we see basically with the stacked Soul Eater though, are we expecting to see basically start rotating here or?
I think he's going to want one item. My guess is he just slams a Glad Shield next, but there are several options. Ansile's not bad still. It's actually a purple buff invade. Venomer's in trouble here. Bifrost,
okay.
He's safe for now, but I don't think he's alive.
Oh, he gets away with it through the realms using his extended
I don't know, man.
dash.
All right, whatever.
You did it again! You did it again!
Yep.
Can you stop saying he's dead to rights? Because he's not! You've said it again. 2 games now. Watery Grave doing a lot of work. Soren picks up Fish on the disengage. Now the Thanatos is corralling members from Madison away from safety. Off the mark with the I'm a Monster. 2 shots do connect from the Chiron ult, but doesn't have the Master Ball shot available to punish it further. Maybe we see... I'm actually surprised here that we didn't see Kennesaw just run back to some of these other objectives.
Yeah, they see red SSB and they want to kill people, and that's all the analysis I've got.
It's kind of ironic. There's no bold gods, but the closest we've got is Norse as a centaur. So I guess they, if you're gonna see red, you're gonna run down at that point, right?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I just completely blanked out on literally everything you said, and I have no idea what's happening. There we go. Okay, moving on from whatever you just asked me to answer. I'm sure it was very insightful.
It's the opposite of deja vu. The opposite of deja vu. That's a genuine thing. Opposite of deja vu. It's incredibly scary. You just have absolutely no idea. It's something like Jida vu or something like that. But it's the exact opposite. It's an incredibly scary experience. Look, I'm bad with words. If you see me try and pronounce player names, hold that thought. We'll talk about player names in a sec. I guess we do have a
player name quite excellently there. Yes, basically is there. He's a Wukong. He actually goes mystical.
He's got an Ox.
He does have an Ox. He also has a Tiger, and he also has an
Bird of Nope.
Bird of Nope, also known as the what do I call him?
I don't know what you call it. I'll let you think on that one. As we see Pyromancer
menacing bird form.
Gator's here. Gator's here. Fenrir, does pick up not ace. That's a big play around for Madison, getting their 3rd kill on the board, but took him a fair bit there. I'm surprised to see that Kennesaw State, the way they're playing this, like we saw last game, when they grouped up, they just steamrolled. Why are we not seeing them group up and steamroll?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, right? Not Ace is looking less effective on the Thanatos as opposed to the Loki at this point, but it's early days yet. Gold Fury and Pyro are both available, and I think this Fafnir pick is going to be much more useful once we get around gold pulls, as long as Kennesaw is the one doing the pulling.
Yeah, hopefully that's what we're going to see, but Madison are trying to death ball themselves. They know that if they group up, they may be able to stand a chance. Can't try and sneak away this Gold Fury, as Kennesaw State have it warded. Whether or not, though, they would even try to pull it, I don't know. Like, this feels so strange. Madison almost feel like they've been forced to sit on their hands here and just try and farm till late.
Yeah, and Darda sitting on your hands. Norse is ulting the wave in advance of Fish's gank. This is more the Fisha that we're used to see. I mean, I suppose he did have a good early game impact in game 1 as well, so he's continuing that trend with the Fenrir here in game 2. If he can stay impactful through the mid game, then UW Madison's going to be in a great spot to win this game.
They certainly are, and that, I think, that just right there is a perfect example of why you buy awards. If you have a ward there, first of all, we know that this is a great reason for why you have wards. Fisher is able to sit there because they are on a sentry ward. Norse does not know they are there, has no way of knowing that they are there. So when he ults the wave, he's just going, I'm just going to back ult the wave, all that good stuff. That buys Fisher the perfect opportunity to go, I'm actually here now. So great work on the capitalization and great patience, I feel, to sit there that long.
Yeah, and Visha is trying to keep pressure and give a lead somewhere, right? Venomer over on this Heimdall, sitting at level 12 right now. I mean, a Heimdall from ahead is a scary thing, especially he's going this kind of burstier build with the Bluestone straight into the Aussie.
Right.
He's not traditionally ahead right now of his lane opponent, but if he were to get to a point where he starts winning 1v1s even against the Ichable, then it becomes really, really scary for Norse to step up at all. He's already ulting waves. If it gets any worse, Norse could be in a really bad spot on the Chiron pick, which has sort of fallen out of flavor in the recent metagame.
It certainly has, but despite going down the 2 kills, they have found themselves up in experience, which is a phenomenal credit to what Norse has been able to do farm-wise. But
he's ulting waves.
Yeah, immediately he's ulted waves to try and actually get that farm, but is that something that Madison should be looking at more? I mean, we sort of sit here, it's very stagnant feeling of both teams going, I guess we should try and gank, but where should Madison be hard pressing here?
It's down to Gold Fury's a 3-man stun from Fish's pretty good pre-beads on Collision to stop the Thanatos silence from stopping his dash. I think this really does come down to Gold Fury fights. We might start to see groupings now as both solo laners have already rotated looking for the gold pit. Collision doesn't have beads for this fight. That could be scary for this Raijin player.
It really could, and so Kennesaw State are going to go ahead and try and abuse that as best they can. Look at how much damage this Watery Grave has taken off the mark with the ultimate, but it shouldn't matter in the end.
Oh, no.
Pick it up. Now look at just the backside. Kennesaw State are running members away from the rest of the Madison's team. They had a brilliant Odin ult there, but no one was around to capitalize on it because basically it's just running members out of almost the entire map.
I don't know if Venomer was actually in that fight yet when it started. Maybe he's got a lot of gold in hand or something where he's being less effective. But I really didn't see the Heimdall get into that fight. We saw the Raijin didn't really do a ton of damage. I'm not super sure.
Oh my god, he gets it! You can't be serious! He actually he sat there and got that on the steal. Now we're going to see Kennesaw State try and claim revenge for that.
Definitely dead. There is no way Venomer lives.
No, he's out. He's out.
Yeah, no, they're not even
Kennesaw
going
State,
on.
though. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can see that sword in the air. You can see that.
You can see it.
They knew that was there.
You also have a debuff on your bar when Heimdall can see you.
You have that like circle, like not even just on the bar. You have like that circle around your player model. They knew that was there.
I mean, rough secure, I guess, from Genji, right? I mean, that's got to be on your solo player to get the secure. That fight started with 2 or 3 missed ults from Kennesaw, and the fact that UW-Madison aren't able to turn that around, I'm not quite sure why. Maybe, like I was saying, maybe Venomer wasn't involved, but Kennesaw loses what was a 1 fight with the Gold Fury, and UW-Madison stay closer to even in this game.
Well, hey, it's not throwing. We're just keeping the game on interesting here in the second game of our best of 5 set. Madison, still they've sat comfortably around this 1,000 gold to 2,000 gold down. Venom now looking with the Atalanta's bow for the 3rd item here, so has that penetration online and a good bit of power and attack speed to really help things out. Kennesaw State not looking to do too much. Maybe hovering around Pyromancer here. They are starting to group, which I'm glad to see.
Yeah, and Kennesaw did group on the Gold Fury. They just forgot how to secure it. So they'll continue the grouping pattern, and if Norse wants to rotate for the Pyro, he might want to finish his next bow before he does. I don't know if you can just slam a Silver Branch in for that 3rd bow after the Aussie as well. But it wouldn't surprise me. We'll see what he wants to do. Is the Pyromancer is going to be pulled. There's a big rotation of green players, or blue players coming in on the bottom, though. UW-Madison's not letting this go for free.
No, they won't let it go for free, but Pyromancer down now is whether or not Ace can get into the... he gets into the ground instead. Nice taunt at the end. Will put Solent in a bit of an awkward spot to jump over the wall. Fenrir is not able to grab anyone with the Ragnarok ultimate. Forces Somersault Cloud. And that's all that's pretty much said and done. But Norse ends up showing up for a solo kill on the left-hand side. That's a big win now for Kennesaw State. They trade themselves out 1-for-1 with Pyromancer and an exposed left side tier 1.
And that's really important for Norse to get that solo kill. Just finishes the Aussie. Aussie Ichval is really hard to box. Venomer does not win that boxing matchup. Chiron's already hard enough to box because you have to kill him with enough health so that his ult doesn't execute you.
Oh, basically be very careful here. I liked what we saw to start with him trying to keep tabs on where everyone was.
Goodbye.
But now it's led to an overextension. Basically throws their life away in that spot. But I like the initial side of things. It's like, hey, I harass out the enemies. I see Fisher and Rirum on the right-hand side. So Norse is able to push for free, but you got to back it up.
Wukong is not immortal when his ult's down, and basically just found that out the hard way.
That's a bit rough there, a bit rough. But like I said, it's not throwing, we're just making the game interesting. Quick question for you right now, Illy. Is Pridwin a good item?
It's pretty good. Do you know how many Pridwins were built at the last SWC?
It was like 10? Like
no, it was like 34 or 43.
Oh, I thought you meant like in a single game, because I was going to say like 10
no.
In a single game.
I think the most in one game was 5. I had a Twitter thread about it at Last Worlds, because Pridwin was really good then, and it's still really good now. I mean, you have great stats, a really good passive, and all of these characters use the Pridwin pretty well. The worst Pridwin user here is Fafnir, and he still likes the cooldown, so no complaints at all.
Looks absolutely fantastic here, as we do see Norse get harassed away from their safety of the tower, but Kennesaw State is starting to group around here. Next Fury is soon to spawn. We'll have to see whether or not Kennesaw State want to try and pick that one up, and if Madison will be able to steal it, as more and more of these items are coming online. We're just still waiting on what that second relic is for the Fafnir. Are we expecting the Frenzy again?
Frenzy. Yeah, I would expect the Frenzy again. If he went the Frenzy over the Ankh in a game with a Yamoja on the enemy team, I'm sure he's going to go the Frenzy here as well. Frenzy is a really sick item, and Fafnir loves it, so no problems at all. Slam the Frenzy, man.
Not yet, as Fury spawns, and immediately Kennesaw State are just straight in on it. No response from Madison just yet. We do see Gator here. There's the blink on in. It's getting low.
Can he secure?
But is released. Kennesaw do manage to secure it this time. And the monster comes on down, but for some reason Hovering Death does not end up landing in on a target. Now the rest of Madison are starting to move back up. Venom is going to pick up not Ace, and that's a good look. Sorens is out of this engagement, cannot stick around. So they lose one for the Fury. It's not the worst trays in the world. Now we just see how impactful those backliners can be for Madison when they are able to get some casting in.
Double Aegis has pulled Collision and Norse, both Aegising each other's damage to try to live as Venomer comes in for this fight. Rirum on the front line. He's going to crystal away 4 people as a dash in from Genji. I mean, this is so strange. They're both disjointed. Nobody is quite sure when they're pushing the aggression. Still good poke, though. Genji does his job that fight. He gets the execute on the Gold Fury and sets up for Gator to be sliced by Not Ace. Not Ace has got to start connecting on these Thanatos ults, though. This is like the 4th or 5th one that we've seen whiffed. And Gator living doesn't totally turn the fight. But it could be a bad omen if people keep living rather, in the future around fires.
It's a really important point, like you mentioned. That execute means that you don't have to invest more abilities. It's that time save of 30 to 40% of someone's health. Doesn't matter at this point in time. As you can see, we've got Hovering Death going on up. Fenrir not concerned about it. There we go.
There we go.
Rirum ends up falling to that, and that's exactly what I mean. There's just no fuss, no muss, no issue whatsoever. The Ragnarok, though, pulling the Thanatos further into the tower. Great work from basically to tank it, so there is no fear there. The rest of the team from Madison are able to show up and put Not Ace down. Cloud Somersault will be used for disengaging. As more members from Kennesaw State are corralling around the right-hand side. Pyromancer is up in this 1-for-1 situation. They might look for it, but Madison are looking slightly more comfortable right now.
Depends if Kennesaw likes the 4v4 without their jungler and Madison down a frontliner. To me, down a frontliner is a good opportunity for Kennesaw to take, and they are going to take it. Pulling the Pyro good secure one more time from Genji. no more mistakes in that department. It's a lot easier to secure now as Scylla level 20 with, you know, 4 going on 5 items. So I don't expect things to escape his secure range in the future.
That's something that we should be looking at in the future for the rest of these kind of engagements. Because you look at Secure, it's Kennesaw State who've got the Secure. It's just Scylla versus Raging. Raging does a lot of damage, but it's 4 shots that are separated time. Scylla, you get it all in one long go. So we're going to see Fire Giant being pulled here by Kennesaw State. Looks to be a bait, as not everyone is in just yet. So these starter items getting upgraded. Leader's Cow, noticeable. Hunter's Cow for Norse available. Getting everyone attack speed as everyone goes on in. Soren's gets incredibly low to the Fire Giant.
Double kill.
Means the Collision's able to pick up a double kill
Going
with
for
these
the triple.
Tycho drums. Now Madison are going straight on in. Thunder Crash in aggressively, forcing the Scylla to ult defensively. Good yeet away is fantastic. This should be a full Deer side with how these health bars are getting so low. Aegis by Scylla a little bit of time, and Norse is there to back them up, making Rerum end up cancelling the situation for it. Gingy will still fall to Fish around the back. Ragnarok should come down. It's a double kill. 4 members for 1. Maybe 4 members for 2 as it stands. Basically will be able to keep themselves in a reasonable spot. The Fenrir, though, looked to try and trade with them, but didn't feel so comfortable on that. Instead, opting to disengage.
Maybe a reset for UW Madison into the Fire Giant, as Venomer's about half HP. Frontline pretty weak as well. Basically, it's gonna keep him here. Soren is coming. I mean, he is a Fafnir with Sunder and a Hammer. That is a scary place for Venomer to be. So he will walk away as the teams reset, and probably they could come back to the fire. It is 24 minutes in the game. I would expect them to, but they could delay till the gold if they want to.
It's been a very it feels like a patient but also impatient game from both these teams right now. Like, we've seen a lot of these fights sort of just full on commit when it feels like the objective was to just go a little bit slower here. Are either of these two teams comfortable or more comfortable going towards the late stage? Because I look at Kennesaw and I go, oh, Thanatos early. So
I like Kennesaw.
Yeah, like, is it just the Scylla then that makes it that much stronger for the late game?
Kennesaw Fafnir are incredible, and then the Scylla Fafnir plus any hunter in the video game, and Thanatos late game is actually pretty terrifying. His execute gets upgraded every 40%. Time you level his ult. So you really do like Thanatos in the late game. Typically more of an execute than the damage that he puts out early. And Wukong late can dive with impunity. On the flip side, though, Heimdall late game, Raijin late game are great. Any frontliner is going to be solid, and Fenrir's transition into a frontline late game is arguably better than that of the Thanatos. So I could see it going both ways. I tend to lean towards Kennesaw, though.
What we do see, though, right now, I mean, just looking at the way that these two picks have gone, Kennesaw State have been more... They've been more sort of momentum orientated with how they've been playing this map. So now we're going to see whether or not Madison can burn Fire Giant quick enough. Kennesaw State know that this is happening. Ragnarok comes on down. Thanatos is able to get up into the sky. That's a big save for them. Now they'll be able to disengage, maybe heal themselves up to about half. That's not too bad.
That's
Madison, they drop a lot of ults there and don't get anything for it.
Rerum with the Odin Cage and Venomer with the Heimdall ult still available, but only Nades is lost on the Thanatos ult as a missed Raiju proc from Collision. No more aggression from basically. He uses his blink too. That could be important as for the Wukong engage if Kennesaw decide to look for a pull on this fire here in the near future.
Okay, well, a little bit of a reset here. Madison not aware that they saw that there were 2 members backing from Kennesaw State. If there were, then I would have expected a pull on that Fire Giant. In fact, 3 members now backing. It looks like Kennesaw State, they're going to drop away from the Fire Giant for now and just farm up a little bit more. And given the state of the game that we're currently in, I don't mind it. We're not at full items yet. A lot of these characters still need a lot of XP, specifically Soren's. Still level 13 here, 26 minutes into the game.
That's not good. I mean, you have a little bit of wiggle room because you are Fafnir and you're really safe and you can play with a deficit. but you can't stay this far behind. Fafnir is great when he starts to get levels, because as your ult gets leveled, you get more time. The ult is the most important part of Fafnir, really. And I really want to see Soren prioritize his farm in future games and be a little more greedy.
Just a little bit. I mean, you're playing literally the Dwarven God who's all about the greed, basically.
True.
With no
He's
ult.
dead.
4 members here is dead to rights.
Caught out
no
without
fuss,
his ult.
No muss. No fuss, no muss on that situation. Now Madison are up a member on this engagement here. They've got a Fire Giant with a reasonable vision as well. Kennesaw State might try and steal. They've still got Gingy, so as long as Gingy is not visible to any of these players, they have to be worried about the steal. We've seen a Heimdall one. We've seen Heimdall one steal it. Maybe they look for Ace, but Ace is just pushing this mid wave, making Madison go. It's kind of forcing Madison to make a decision. Either they keep umming and ahhing and they lose their mid tier one, but if they try and take this engagement here, Kennesaw State are looking to just back up and disengage from it. So either way, Kennesaw State are okay with this situation. There's the blink ult from Fenrir, forces Gingy's ult, which is a big goal for them. Now they're going to start up this Fire Giant. Got that Slimer monster down. They don't have to worry as much about the enemy secure.
See how they take this without a frontliner. Kennesaw, Soren stepping up and trying to make space. Watery Grave coming out from the Kuzenbo. Big damage.
He's not dead.
Soren's still alive. Collision has to jump in to get him, and Not Ace will capitalize. And 1-for-1 trade in favor of Kennesaw.
So Norse hits one basic attack there, and Collision's like, ha, I'm fine, and then is executed. Like, there was no chance to even think about it. It was just the one basic. As they hit threshold, Not Ace is landing in on that. That's just, I mean, obviously the execute's a little bit luck involved there, but they were still going to die to that with Not Ace coming in afterwards. Either way, I believe that ended up as a 1-for-1 trade. Mid for support. I think I want to kill the level 20 Raijin over the level 14 Fafnir.
But to be fair, Soren needs to be alive so that he can keep getting farm on the map. So it sucks for Soren, but shutting down Collision, maybe now Kennesaw can go back in and look for another fire pull without the mid laner being here for UW Madison. This is an opportunity for Kennesaw that I'm not sure if they're keen on taking. The bead's still down for Gingy, is trouble into the Fenrir, and Soren, I guess he does have the double upgraded relics now, but they're not really aggressively grouping to pull this. Collision will be back in time.
You can tell basically he's a support player at heart, because they haven't opted for the upgraded Sundering Axe. They've gone for Hero's Axe. This is purely to help on the dive potential. And I actually kind of really like it with this comp if they are going for that dive kind of a comp.
It's a little strange for me, because Wukong is usually the one diving in the opponent's backline. Hero's Axe gives your teammates CC a shield when they are CC'd, which is typically better on a carry. So, I mean, he could maybe play with Ace, and Ace might get the shield, which is good.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's also a little strange to me because he doesn't have a ton of health items in his build. The only items with health are the Hero's Axe and the Mystical and the Talisman. The other 3 items have no health on them at all for the Hero's Axe proc.
That's true, but a little bit of extra health is always going to be nice.
It's never bad.
You see,
yeah.
As you're going to see a move away from the Fire Giant pit, we're going to instead play a quick game of Assault right now, or ARAM if you're particularly inclined to call it that. Madison's, though, I don't know quite why they're so adamant at sieging this right now. It's okay, and they get a good bit of poke because of Raijin, but right now it's still just a much ado about nothing. So we see Gator go in and just eat a load of CC and take so much damage. Now into the back line, the Sun Wukong forced to retreat back to the rest of the team. Kennesaw State are going to push on further down. Gingy picks up Venom. Up into the sky goes Not Ace to try and chase us a little bit further. The beads Aegis are good to help with the CC. I'm a monster just off the mark, but it's still not enough. Kennesaw State are going to barrel down the mid lane. Madison started this, but Kennesaw State finish it.
That siege is a real head scratcher for me, OSSB. There's a fire up, there's a gold fury up. It seems like UW Madison isn't comfortable taking a jungle fight, but they have a great team for a jungle fight. Heimdall can see people on flanks. Fisha on this Fenrir is a great character in the jungle, pull people back. into choke points that your Raijin can absolutely slap out damage. Rirum's looking for the contest. He might escape. Masterful Shot will shut him down. But now Collision's back, and maybe this is a contestable thing.
I'm just waiting for the blink. There it is, basically getting shut down there and it's a good look for the rest of Kennesaw State. Members from Madison have been marching in one by one. Some good damage coming through from the Raiju and the Raijin, but it's just not enough. Double kill now for basically members of Madison's left in tatters. Fire Giants up, and that's exactly where Kennesaw State are going to head back to.
Well, I was saying that maybe the Thanatos would eat the Hero's Axe proc when it's normally on a carry, that you want to get that. And that's what happened there. Not Ace blinks in and instantly gets taunted by Collision's Raijin and takes no damage from the Raijin ult because the Hero's Axe proc ate all of it. So, I mean, there you go. Fair enough. We see the item at work.
It kind of fits exactly what Basically wants to do, is they've been playing this sort of utility style for the dive. They've been that feel very much like a
this game. He's also been playing the int style a little bit as well, but well, I won't harp on that too much.
Oh no, I know you will. I know you will.
Yeah, I already have that.
We can't let Basically have an ego.
Good luck with that.
Well, no, I'm a solo laner at heart, so I like seeing how each solo laner plays it around. Some players you have, I just go in and I look to delete people. Some are more of the supportive style when diving. Some are much more defense-oriented. And Basically's played this as just, I'm a facilitator, whether that's frontline dive, whether that's peel, whatever it is. They seem to be doing it. It's an almost jackable trade style, and I think this Wukong surfaces that pretty well.
It strangely is, because Wukong is typically, I mean, when I think of Wukong, I think of a, physical Jormungandr style, where you're just kind of getting in there and doing a lot of killing, more so than helping. But he is, I mean, with the Hero's Axis procs, and we'll say tactically eating the enemy ultimates prior to his, about 2 minutes prior to a one-team fight, he's doing a great job, so... fair enough for him, but I think the turnaround here has been that Genji is really able to cast without any threat, and even if he's missing some abilities, it hasn't mattered because he's just had no threat on him, and he's just able to cycle his cooldowns again and again and again.
I mean, we saw on that engage up at the tier 1 tower on Kennesaw State's side, Gingy gets one Sikkim onto Gator, and Gator's at 25% health. And that's just the end of that engagement for Madison as they disengage. But Kennesaw State now, we've seen a very clinical look from this first Fire Giant. Is enhanced Fire Giant as well. But with Drago up, this may be a little bit more difficult of a siege. I believe that has just gone away. Kennesaw State going full on in, looking for the engagement here onto the right-hand side. Phoenix out goes Not Ace, not able to find any further follow-up here. Health was getting low, but this Phoenix is doing a lot of work on the back line. Kennesaw State not able to close out the gap much. Collision is gonna fall finally.
Gingy?
For one. Gingy can't land the ult. Finally, the Phoenix falls, and that may have just broken it open wide for Madison here, or rather for Kennesaw State. Double kill for Norse. 2 members remaining, and it's the front line, and it's deja vu all over again. Kennesaw State, they're gonna try and just run this down. One Phoenix is all they need. One time in, and it should be enough. Madison are doing what they can, but once again, there's just too much damage on the board. It took them a little bit longer, but Kennesaw State find themselves up 2-0.
And Norse put out a lot of damage on the Artemis, and he put out a lot of damage again here. And fair enough, right? I mean, if your hunter is going to be this free, Gingy was super free both games with the Scylla, able to just cast at will. Somehow, this backline dive with Fisha and Rirum needs to find a way to be more effective, whether it's different picks or a different play style or different builds. Whatever it is, they have not been able to threaten the backline of Kennesaw at this point.
And that really surprises me. We've got 3 very strong dive gods on the side of Madison with 3 blinks. Kuzumbo, who's their whole shtick is, I'm the anti-ADC guardian, not able to stand in front of that. Odin, who's able to blink in and tank up a huge amount of damage. Fenrir, who can cause so many problems. But every time, whoever they seemed to end up going on, it just didn't matter because someone else on the side of Kennesaw was able to go, all right, I guess this is my team fight to show up big.
Yeah, I agree totally. It's you've got a great kit of tools on Kennesaw, and they've done a good job showing it off thus far.
That they have. Now we're in that do or die situation here in this best of 5. 2 games down. Madison need to win this game if they're going to go ahead and stick into this. As we throw it back to the desk, my question is, what do Madison do differently to hold on here in game 3?
They've got to find a way to dive the backliners. They've just been untouched thus far, and it's going to remain rough for them until they're put in under threat.
All right, well, back to the drawing board. The team are going to go. We're going to go ahead and throw it to a quick break before we get it back to the desk, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for that short break we got there for you. Apologize now as we were having some issues with the cams. We just took a minute to get that. Is Narwallaby. Thank you for joining me here for game 3. You know, you were there to watch game 2 with me. What are some of your thoughts about it?
It was definitely a lot slower of a paced game than what we're typically used to seeing coming out of Kennesaw State there. Still at the end of the day, they're able to secure their victory, but past 30 minutes for a first Fire Giant for either of these teams is a pretty slow pace, especially considering how they played in the regular season.
Yeah, and I know they talked about it a little bit on the desk there, but I think part of that was just because of the style they went up, that frontline setup that they were kind of talking about on that dive, to where they kind of needed everybody alive to get those objectives on the fight for both sides, really. And when you have such a very dive-heavy comp both ways, where you have to do everything, so perfectly, it really put that kind of knife edge for trying to win some of these engagements.
Yeah, for sure. Neither one of them really felt strangely comfortable doing it. You would have thought that Kennesaw, with the Scylla Crush and Scylla Ult, would have been obviously the Scylla is the best secure that was on the map as it was sitting, but already having a couple of issues there earlier in the game with that stolen Gold Fury, maybe didn't feel nearly as confident going into trying to secure the Fire Giant, especially with Ryzen banging on the Tycho drums and just dealing a bunch of damage to them as they're all sitting in the pit and taking Fire Giant damage as well. So just playing it safe, wanting to get their 2-0 lead coming in here to this best of 5.
Yeah, Madison, like you mentioned, having a little bit of that team fight where Kennesaw really just couldn't 50-50 the objective and really gain out of the positive there. So it took them a little bit. And the one thing else is with that pick, while Ace had a little bit of a rougher game following up on that Loki game, but Gingy and Norse on that backline really were able to put in work, and not just those team fights, but around those objectives too.
Yeah, both of the backliners there for Kennesaw really able to kind of just, go through it and just free cast for the most part. Gingy only having the one death for himself. Norse perishing a couple more times, but those were a little bit earlier in the game and not really dying when it came to the team fight situation. And I think you got to look at Soren and basically both of those for keeping the enemy front line away from their own backline and letting them just kind of free cast and throw out a bunch of damage.
Yeah, and which was kind of an interesting too, considering they have the backliners into that matchup, specifically that Chiron and Thanatos, really not able to get away from this Odin, but doesn't really to have a whole lot of value as far as some of these team fights like we would have expected.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I kind of want to see maybe a little bit of a change up coming from Kennesaw here in that jungle more specifically. It didn't really, like I said earlier, it didn't really seem like the Thanatos had that much of an impact. But if I'm UW Madison, I maybe look for something a little bit different coming out of the solo lane. They picked that Odin fairly early in their draft and ended up not really having much of an impact, going 0-4-10. So it was kind of one of those. It's just kind of sat there, felt like it could have had an impact, but was never really able to get the cages on prime targets. So maybe look to change up a little bit in the solo lane if I'm UW Madison coming into this game 3.
Well, we won't wait any longer. We do have the picks and bans ready to go. But yeah, you mentioned the Odin. Kennesaw had it, was able to get some good value out of it. Madison ended up taking it, though, not having the same thing. Do we maybe see that end up getting banned here then? Is that, I know we've had some pretty standard bans, both game 1 and game 2, the exact same 3 bans. So really kind of leaves not a whole lot of room for some of these picks that have excelled or not excelled in this first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, when we get into these best of 5 sets, this is really where it gets exciting for me as either a desk person or just a fan in general of Smite is, when you see these teams, if this was regular season, but it's already over, Kennesaw would have already won their set 2-0 since they just play their best of 3s. But, when we get into these ones, this is where you really start to see focus bans start coming out from teams and trying to take certain things away from them that, maybe had too much of an impact. So you just go ahead and ban it away, as we see the Soul going ahead and getting taken away first for UW Madison.
Yeah, you mentioned some of that change up, but Madison, despite being down 0-2, opt to keep that first pick. Also, in the last two games, have kept the Fenrir as well as the Raijin in both games. So there's a lot that they haven't quite been changing here. Hopefully, we see a little bit of that here. Yeah, there's a lot there that they could definitely do to change. And I think I need to see some of that. Fenrir definitely had a good game. Game two wasn't terrible in game one, didn't have as much pressure I wanted. And the Raijin, while doing decent as far as like laning phase and early on, just once it came to these team fights, just really just kind of didn't do enough for me. I think we might need to see a switch up from that, especially being first overall pick in both games.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you look at the Raijin, you think that that's just like the main comfort pick that Collision wants to go to, and you know, a lot of these games too is a lot about your just overall comfort level with playing. But we see Morgan Le Fay going ahead and getting taken away there by Kennesaw, not really wanting to let that through. I know we've seen that God a couple of times in the SPL to, you know, moderate success. She hasn't really been a dominant player, but she's also had times where she looks like she's the best god in the game. So no real surprise seeing that getting taken away. Maybe they haven't had enough time to practice against it just yet, or just not wanting UW Madison to pick it up for themselves from that first pick selection.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of that value there, and it's a new god, so we don't exactly know where it's at. And if you don't have that practice, sometimes you just gotta ban it away. And when you're up 0-2, you can rely on that comfort. You know, you've got that pick in there. Is now the Athena ban picked up halfway through the bans of game three. No changes yet. So as much as I know that there's a lot of those top picks that you really can't play with, it's really kind of starting to worry me a little bit for Madison. I need to see something different. Looking if not in these bans, especially in these picks.
Yeah, for sure. And then we see the Tiamat again getting taken away. I think a lot of the focus has been coming onto this mid lane as of late with mages in general. You know, a lot of their itemization got a lot nicer. As we see Scylla also getting taken away from UW Madison. So far we have 4 mages already banned away. You know, Soul can kind of flex into that ADC role, but you know, for the most part, you're still looking to get rid of a lot of those mid laners that are going to have a large impact on the game.
Yeah, and that's the first switch that we've seen in these bans. Finally realizing that this Scylla pick is on the opposite mid lane's getting a lot more value than what they're getting. And as the Gilgamesh lands in, almost identical bans in all 3 games. And I'm kind of now thinking that they're probably then going to stick with that Raijin. Is I guess they have a thought process that they were in both of these first 2 games. They can probably still win it the same way as they do cover that Raijin again.
Yeah, this one's not really too much of a surprise there. He's probably one of the better mids that are still available. I think Giannis still being available is another strong pick that we might look to see Kennesaw possibly pick up. But interesting as well, the Loki also getting left open here. So Loki, that was pretty dominant in game number 1, being left open for Kennesaw to pick up again here coming into game number 3. But it looks like they might be looking to go a different route as they are hovering this Camazotz and Sobek. And yeah, they're going to go ahead and lock in that Camazotz. Now, that could potentially be a Camazotz solo, but I'm more than likely we're going to see Camazotz in the jungle.
Yeah, definitely. I prefer to see in the jungle. And the other thing as well, with that Scylla being banned, the only god that wasn't banned in the Madison kind of have to give that up is now with that Scylla and how much pressure and objective pressure that they've had with these first 2 games kind of being a little bit more, not necessarily methodical, but just kind of slower paced around these objectives, trying to need to be a little bit more perfect, like I said, on that knife's edge. But interesting hovers here. Madison pulling out some picks that we haven't seen, and I like to see it, but Hercules and a Wheelix hovered.
Yeah, Hercules, if this does in fact get locked in, and it just did, I'm more leaning on that going over to the solo lane. I've been having a lot of fun, just like in my ranked games and casual games, running this Hercules solo, because you know you're able to go that fighter's mask, which gives you 40 power coming right out of base, and Hercules autos on that, especially on that 3rd auto chain. If you get hit with that, you're doing over 100 damage with just that one auto attack, and then into driving strike and all of his other abilities that just hit for quite a bit of damage. He's able to kind of just run at the enemy backlines, and he's really hard to punish, especially once he gets level 20 and he's able to build like a Bumba's hammer or something like that. But I really enjoy the Hercules pick, and if I'm UW Madison, I'm looking to put that in the solo lane.
Yeah, it's big in the solo lane. We've seen it in SPL. I believe Benji was the first person to pull it out in the solo lane, but we've also seen supports like Bobby inbound, as well as we know that PBM has a very strong Hercules support. So does give that flexibility there. I know it was banned away in game one in the second phase from Madison. So definitely Kennesaw understands that that's a pick they want. Madison finally prioritizing it up at the top, but rounding out these top picks with the King Arthur and looking at the Hercules, kind of we're still focusing a little bit on that. There's not a whole lot of burst damage I see that can deal with Hercules. And yeah, Sobek has the innate anti-heal. You got some good characters like Camazotz and King Arthur that can apply or have those auras, but not a whole lot of burst damage that's going to keep down this Hercules with that Mortal Wounds heal.
Yeah, if I'm Kennesaw, I think they're going to probably look for just itemizing into anti-heal. Camazotz is a pretty decent applier of like Brawler's Beat Stick. Sobek, you already mentioned, has some of the innate anti-heal on his Sickening Strike. And, King Arthur could eventually go into like a Cursed Ankh or something like that to help deal with the Hercules damage. But, we see Ymir go ahead and taken away there by Kennesaw, not wanting UW-Madison to pick that up for themselves. Ymir still bringing quite a bit of zone control, but UW-Madison putting a little bit of focus towards Norse here in this second phase, banning away the Artemis, and Kennesaw rounding out their bans with Umoja.
Yeah, the Kennesaw really just kind of focusing on what they think is their weakness. They are up 0-2, so you can kind of do that. And with the Ymir and Emoji bans, very much focusing that front line, as well as that Emoji being strong in game one, but also Artemis, Norse playing a great game one on it as well. I'm curious to see if they're going to ban his Chiron away from game two, or if maybe they look towards the mid laners, as there's still a lot open. It is end up being that Chiron here. So we're going to see a third ADC for Kennesaw's ADC Norse here, and Madison's going to have to find another support here that they're going to have to play, unless he decides to go back to that Kuzumbo, which didn't seem to have a whole lot of value or impact in that second game.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like Kuzumbo did enough in that game. I still don't think Kuzumbo is really necessarily one of those top supports that you want to pick right away. If I'm UW-Madison, I'm more so looking at like a Ganesh or something that's going to be able to handle the dive that's going to come out from Kennesaw, because both Camazotz and King Arthur have fantastic dives, and if you're able to just silence out a King Arthur, he's got all his buttons, but if he can't press them, he's kind of just sitting there just lunging at you with auto attacks. But an interesting pickup here for the Agni for Genji in the mid lane here for Kennesaw.
Yeah, another mid lane he goes to, opts for this since Scylla was banned away from the first two games. But I personally kind of like this here. Got some decent self-peel with that interrupt of those stuns. Those bombs can be a little bit difficult to get on that Awelix, whom I'm assuming would be trying to focus this Agni. No CC immunity innately in that kit, and that backflip to really kind of deal a lot of that big burst damage. But I got some burst damage like I asked for this Hercules, another god as well that's really good at applying that anti-heal. Divine Ruins, really easy with those bombs that can be so far away. But Madison, go back to that Kuzumbo, as you mentioned, not anything crazy, but not anything that was terribly think we should shy away from. But Rama picked up for the ADC here to round up Madison's draft.
That's Rama's really interesting to me because it felt like Venomer had a really strong showing on the Heimdall there in that last game. So kind of surprised to not see him look to go back to that pick. But picking up the Rama, I mean, Rama brings a lot of that global pressure and can kind of start a lot of these fights off with his Astral Barrage and put either try to get Genji low or try to get the Norse low as this ADC, as it looks like he's hovering Medusa for themselves right now.
Medusa, a hunter we've seen a little bit now that kind of the auto attack transcendence kind of builds are kind of back in there with that mobility. And another hunter we get to see, instead of going to the Artemis, instead of the Chiron, now goes the Medusa. So kind of in that same vein, very up in your face kind of hunter, just wants to try to out trade you more than anything. But what do you see with looking at these comps that Madison's going to have to do to try to force a game 4?
If I'm Madison, I'm looking to try to find a way to get to this back line and deal with Genji and Norse and not let them just kind of sit back there and free cast. And Norse on this Medusa, I'm expecting him to kind of go into that attack speed pin build, maybe looking at like your Silver Branch Bow. That's a tongue twister for me apparently. wanted to see him go into that because, while it might not seem like it, Medusa does in fact have the highest attack speed steroid in the game at 80% with her Viper shot. It may only be for 4, but the bonus damage that you get off of a Silver Branch bow there going to make those those Viper shots sting just a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, Venom's even have the Caster's Curse on his side. Maybe he can get that to help his team force the game 4. Blur, Illy, take it away.
Here we are in the dire straight situation. Kennesaw State's looking to wrap this one up cleanly, but Madison not going to go down without a fight. Want to try and keep themselves in. Hercules, Awelish, Yurajin, Kuzumbo, and Ram are their defenders here, whereas Kennesaw State, a totally different draft, but it still feels like it's that same Kennesaw core of, we just fight you in massive team fights.
Yeah, they definitely do like team fighting, and it's just the old big circle strat. I mean, Agni, lots of setup, CC is good, Camazotz gets to kill people with impunity, and tell you what, Blur, if they're having trouble killing your backline, you have no problem picking backliners that are traditionally somewhat unsafe, like the Agni and the Medusa, at the upside of lots of damage and consistent cooldowns from the Agni. So I like the draft. But on the flip side, Madison again has gotten a draft that they're very comfortable with. All of these players like these characters. Collision loves the Raijin. He's picked it 3 times in a row. Fisha likes the Awelish. He's played it a lot. Gator just played the Kuzumbo and it looked fine. Venomer certainly has a Ram, and Riram is a solo laner playing Hercules. So I mean, it's a good draft from UW-Madison, but Kennesaw so far has just out-team fought them.
And look at that, the respect from Madison in the duo lane. They just completely disengage. They have reasonably strong clear, but as soon as Soren's in North Shot, they're like, oh, no, we don't want to fight this. No, excuse me, sorry. We'll just be going back to the tower. Almost felt as very humbled in that experience, but now they're going to start trying to push up as we take a quick peek at mid, which looks about even. But now Madison have started to realize, oh, wait, we have better clear than them, so do have a reasonable look. And if we're looking at this for Madison here as a whole, there's a big potential for first blood there. One more basics, all Gingy needs. Can't quite find that last little bit of damage. Fisher really getting put in dire straits. Actually, Gator's looking for a very early rotation over here. Has Blink available. Yep. Don't know whether or not Kennesaw have called it, but
Fisher wants this.
Respect there. Fisher is still trying to stick around for this. They may look for a little bit of damage, but can't quite find it. But this has left Venom high and dry again. One more basics, all that's needed. And Madison, what had started as a reasonable look for them, has kind of just slipped through their fingers.
Just missed the first blood for Kennesaw, and then Kennesaw almost kills Madison in duo as well off the blink pluck, probably from Soren, seeing that blinks on cooldown. No beads expended though, and all relics still available for UW-Madison, so they could look for some blink plays of their own.
Uh-oh, Gator, you went and sumo slammed in. It's come on and slam. Now welcome to the jam of you getting kind of run down by 2 players. You
were saying, sir.
And he's gonna get away with it. That's disgusting.
What is it with UW-Madison's duo lane and living as soon as we sell it?
Getting away when they shouldn't.
Okay, you're dead. You're literally dead.
Venom.
You are dead, and
Venom.
I did not cast or curse you again. You are dead. 100%. Nope, he's dead. He's literally dead right now.
He's not dead. They're actually going to turn it around. Collisions. Getting first blood for Madison. Wow. You know, I just realized.
SSB. Yeah? I think the UI is bugged because Ram doesn't have a 1 in the death column.
Yeah, he's not dead.
He's literally dead though.
But he had Aegis.
He never lives there.
But apparently he does. He does. You know what it was?
I don't know.
You know what it was? It was the extra movement speed from Hunter's Cowl.
Huge.
Or from
You're actually right as well. That's literally why. That's crazy.
Still, it's good to see Madison here with the first blood, though. That's got to at least feel good for morale, right?
Yeah, it's got to feel good. Venomer's going to be kicking himself for the boost beads, but that's okay. There's always next time, and hey, apparently it didn't matter, so good for you, bud.
I mean, it's only a mistake if it matters, right?
Yeah, we'll say that.
Otherwise, it's just a misplay. It's a mistake if it's punished. It's a misplay if it doesn't matter.
Right. Yep.
That's, I'm just trying to be nice. I'm just trying to be nice. But I think the other reason as well was you've got Medusa with Viper shots and acid spray and all this poisoning stuff. But we have Venom. I mean, you can't do that kind of stuff. He's literally dead this time. We'll call it after he ends up dying. So nice little rotation there coming in from Kennesaw State. Dual lane seems to be where all the action is happening here. And the way that Norse has been able to sharp lane these late stages with the team fights, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and if they're able to continue to keep their dual lane ahead, it's good looks. But I don't know. It's gonna come down to more for Madison than a ROM that's either ahead or behind. The rest of the team has got to be involved once we get into mid game, and they need to find a way to kill backliners.
Well, the ROM will be able to help kill those backliners from afar, and hopefully Fisher is going to be able to get around to that backline. I am a little concerned, though, that a lot of Madison's is just walking at you to get there, and Kennesaw have a fantastic kind of a comp that loves it when you just walk at them. Agni able to set up a load of damage potential. Not Ace gets a lot of poke off as well. Basically won't let you walk up to them. So I am a little concerned as to how Madison dive that backline.
Yeah, it's going to come down to whether Fisher and Riram can pair up as this double blink pair, right, and find a way in. He doesn't even need to necessarily pull people with the Wilishal. It's just, can you get to a point where the stim is enough for you to out DPS a Medusa or an Agni?
I got a Hydras to help start that off, and we've seen similar sorts of things in just this set with the Hydras. We're over the 5-minute mark, so now Gold Fury and Fire Giant Scorpions have spawned. But again, both of these teams seem very uninterested in trying to take those early. But Madison might be looking to go for a gank here. We'll walk straight over a ward, so now Norse is aware of it. But look at how they play. They don't let it on, but they know it's coming, and so instead just turn it around phenomenally. Venom ends up eating the damage just out of sheer just existing, and then Fisher hides around a corner, gets taken down. That is how you play around knowing the enemy is there. That is perfect.
Yeah, and that's huge for this Medusa. Medusa from ahead is terrifying. Snake Lady with many heads will stare you down and one-shot you. This character is really good as long as she doesn't have to worry about getting out-traded. And right now, she is not a care in the world.
You could say that play was absolutely stunning.
Indeed. Petrifying, in fact.
I wouldn't go that far, no.
Okay.
Still, we are seeing what some of that pressure is enabling Kennesaw State to do. They go ahead and grab that Scorpion, the fastest Scorpion we've seen all set, so that sets things up nicely for them. And this is also great for Kennesaw, I feel, because now this Medusa's just massive. They've got a free opportunity to just look to try and fight elsewhere if they want without any problems, as Madison try to go ahead and take down basically, but there's way too much range on this Arthur.
Arthur is really hard to kill when he can outrun you, and he has 3 movement abilities, so that's pretty good.
I mean,
basically,
basics then.
Yeah, basically still getting ganked, but now Not Ace is coming over as well. Blink available on the Camazotz. Fish has already used his. I don't think anybody dies in this lane. As I say that, we're about to have 2 kills. Yep.
This might be what the situation is, but it's a game of chicken, and this, I feel, just works perfectly in favor for Kennesaw State. Gravity Surge comes on down. The boulder is used as well. Basically, a Not Ace get pretty low, but no way for them to secure the damage. So this is perfect. It's just, okay, here's the jungler and solo laner splitting farm, getting Kennesaw State further ahead on the other side of the map. Sumo Slam into a wall, remounts to no extra damage. Soren just walks away.
Walks away for now. We'll see. We'll see this Sobek. This Sobek pick is an interesting one to me. SSB. It's come out more recently as a solo laner, due to the fact that tanks have been nerfed so much, and it's hard to get away with plucking into people in the current metagame around golds and things. but it is still a difficult pick to kill in the very early game, which is where we still are. So Soren can make a huge impact on this Sobek until, I think until about the third item, he's going to be pretty hard to kill.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, is it's not just the situation of, oh, Sobek's really easy to kill. It's, what do you invest into the Sobek to kill him? How much do you want to do that? Especially when the rest of Kennesaw State are so burst heavy in this response. It feels like the response to dealing with a burst comp is, you've got to have burst yourself. If you've used all that into a Sobek's kind of done their job. Yeah,
absolutely. And Sobek is quite a damage sponge sometimes. You see some aggression here. Stun. Maybe a pluck. Does he want it? He wants it so bad, but he's not going for it.
He wants it, but he's not going to go for it. It's that threat of activation of just, I could go for it, but I'll let you go this time, but only because I'm letting you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the solo lane mentality anyway. It's just, I'm letting you get away with doing it. Yeah, you have to have the ego for solo lane.
You really do.
Otherwise, you don't. That's the thing, is everyone rags on solo and is like, oh, they play big dumb warriors, but you gotta have the mental fortitude to sit in that lane and stare down your opponent and go, you're nothing. I'm letting you get away with this. Oh, you happen to get a cringe gank. Wow, now I'm behind. This is entirely your fault, enemy team. And you have to sit there and take that. Because we saw that. I mean, basically sat there with two people in their lane.
I mean, to be fair, he got cringe
help
ganked
from the jungler because they're, I'm gonna go get my speed.
I'm gonna say basically was the recipient of the cringe gank for both of the first two games, and Riram died twice to the cringe ganks. So yeah.
I mean, admittedly, that is because basically needed the help for it. I mean, have you seen these
perfect.
Coming
there
out?
We go. Great turnaround.
What if you're gonna say you can't get an ego? I gotta get digging somewhere. Though on the topic of the build, the tainted steel, is that really necessary into a Hercules?
It's fine, helps you trade in lane, and you're gonna want some anti-heal eventually. So yeah, I don't hate it. Eventually there's gonna be a soul gem from the Raijin. Willish doesn't have any inherent sustain, but the Rom will. So yeah, tainted steel's fine. It's a good item, good stats, and works well.
I just feel sometimes
he might have soloed him. Did he solo him?
He may look. He's going for it. He's going for it. He's got the ult available, but doesn't end up using it.
All right, he's fine.
But no, but this is a TKO situation. I mean, look at these towers right now. Mid tower is a single hit away from falling. Left side's looking a fair bit worse.
Now he's got him.
Riran ends up trying to stick around.
He's literally dead right now.
Isn't going to be able to do this. He's not literally dead just yet.
There he is.
Finally, mitigate wounds not able to mitigate just enough. Gravity Surge forces out Bat out of hell, and instead not going to be able to keep this going. There's the blink. The blink in exchange ends up working out in favor of no one there. Madison still trying to press the issue in mid lane. Watery Grave used by the Kuzenbo, and in all honesty, I think that's like the one player we've not really seen a lot come out from is Gator right now, and I can't help think that it's kind of this Kuzenbo.
I mean, Kuzenbo is a good pick. He has displacement CC, but it seemed like he was definitely on a different page from his mid there, in the mid 2v2 or 3v3, whatever you want to call that. So, good juke there from Collision on the pluck from Soren. Mid camp still confirmed, though, by Kennesaw, I believe.
It's still a little bit of an uphill battle, though, as we do see. About a 2,000 gold lead. Rom going for the ult, though, over in the left lane. Maybe able to find it. Gets it, thanks to the minion damage. Venom showing back up, putting a kill under their own belt. And with Rage picked up for Norsir, they ain't going to get a chance to stack that up for a little bit.
This is interesting. We haven't seen a crit build in a while, but it sort of does make sense in the ROM. The desk was talking about Silver Branch working on Medusa, and it does work somewhat on Medusa. But I do agree that the extra burst from this crit build can be excellent as well. So I don't hate it. It is a little out of meta, and I probably would default to Silver Branch as well, but this is a Gold Fury here. We'll see if they can secure this one as the fight breaks out.
Tycho Drums might be looking to try and secure, but no one on Madison is actually securing it. They're more worried about trying to peel this bat out of hell. 5 members here in Kennesaw State with 3 just kind of show up and shove them off. Now lurking in the waters to try and turn around some water trail, peel it out. The Hercules boulder is big.
Can't believe he's
dash
alive.
away means that Gingy gets away, basically finds Venom on the backhand of this fight and will try and keep it going and replace their other frontliner here just to try and spin to win for the rest of this. More members from Kennesaw State are going on in. This is a full disengage now from Madison, but Kennesaw State want more blood.
They do. There goes the Petrify. Rerum is stunned out. Good acid splash, dealing damage to Collision. SSB, that was a 4v5 that Kennesaw State just won. Norse just showing up at the end. Fish is gonna try to look for this, but his blink up's up now. Basically, won't let him use it. Good secure there by Zone for Kennesaw.
Absolutely beautiful. Basically, just goes, okay, stun you, CC you to death. I don't like what's basically going to do to secure that. Like, basically, it's not that it's secure. Just stopping the enemy securing it is secure enough. And again, going back to that mentality, this is a support player playing the solo lane and playing it on a relatively strong god, and then using that how they're used to.
Tell you what, if it was me over there in solo lane right now, I'd be playing Sobek and Cerberus. So, or maybe Jing Chen if I want to cosplay Slaney.
There's the one. There's the one you want. You want Jing Chen because that's fun because you get to build. You get to build Soul Reaver and Phil. Ethereal
I
stuff
just build full defense.
Ethereal stuff. Nah, ethereal stuff. You don't get any ethereal stuff in there. You gotta run it out like it's season 3.
You don't need it. You don't need the stuff. It could be good though. I would.
You don't need anything.
I think I would pull out the Kabamzan bow though. I'd be the Kuzenbo solo. Kuzenbo solo OP.
I mean, have you ever had a Blink Sumo Slam level 1? It's disgusting, the amount of damage that ends up happening, and talking about disgusting amounts of damage, when there are 3 members around, no way Hercules can survive that one. Ends up falling down to a free pick, and now Kennesaw State, I was going to say could look for a Pyromancer here, but there's no goal. There's no Fury. There's no Scorpion up. Admittedly, I thought the Fire Giant was up, but I thought they were going for Fire Giant, but no, it's just the Scorpion. Now, off of the Lacerate.
He's got the boys.
Boys are here. They know, but they can't go in. They just can't go in.
They can't. No, and it's I mean, it's fine rotation. Norse is looking for the solo kill. Venomber's able to stall with the Rom Mold, also going a crit build, interestingly enough. So we'll see if the Spectrals come out for the frontliners, as we would typically expect. And it looks like the teams kind of just want to stall out. Maybe they'll go to the setup for this Pyro now that the Reds will be down.
That could be a look for them, but you mentioned about stalling out. The one thing that these crit builds do is they have a great PvE kind of DPS right now. So if these do come down to those sort of Fire Giant or Gold Fury fights, I think that might be why we see Kennesaw lean into the crit here.
Yeah, it could be. The crit builds are always going to be better for objectives, and with something like an Awilish that can help you burn down objectives as well, this could be dangerous. UW Madison with the crit ROM and the Awilish damage could really burn an objective quickly. Kennesaw, same thing with the Agni DPS and the Medusa.
And it's not working out too bad for them, as we see a little attempt around this side for Kennesaw State. The Agni build here from Gingy, we saw this yesterday ourselves on a Scylla, where you've got this super high lifesteal amount, but I think for the Agni, this works so much better. Agni, who needs to be a little bit closer, it just adds that extra layer of security for them.
Yeah, extra. You're never gonna say no to extra. If somebody walked up to you and said, "Would you like extra security?" and it doesn't cost any money, I mean, as long as they aren't like
damage either.
Yeah, and they're not like stealing your credit card information or something. I mean, I'd take it.
It works out nicely, because the thing is you remember what they said on like the desk, and we've been saying is you've got to find a way to dive this backline. You've got to find a way to stop these free casters. Okay, then. So you've started focusing.
Oh boy! I didn't realize that was 10k experience. Holy cow!
Wow, that's a big lead, and 6,000 gold
lead. That's
huge.
Well.
Yeah, it's the biggest gold lead we've seen this set here. Just
good
better fighting as we're going to see here. Madison now going to finally pull off a knock-up. It's just not quite enough yet. Lucking the Waters puts him low, but Gingy gets the free cast. Fish Air ends up as a fish out of water. Rami is ulting, but has been spotted out over on the left side of this flank. Medusa just going to push up the lane because the rest of the team is fine.
They're winning 4v5.
Not quite enough. Basically, you don't have the Glad Shield. This isn't season 7. You can't 1v4 that hard.
I mean, Kennesaw is evenly trading 4v5s because Norse is just getting free towers right now, and if this keeps happening, UW-Madison's going to get so far behind, it's going to be hard for them to contest. This is a 3-level lead in dual lane right now. That is massive, and in a full item, effectively, once Norse gets a chance to back. I mean, that is incredible.
It is, but at the same time, I look at this and go, Norse has built Rage, which stacks on kills, and Gingy's got now the Karen's Coin, which stacks on kills. I kind of want them to just group and go for some more of that kind of kills. Like,
here they go.
Don't get me wrong, I love the slow-paced PvE situation. I love the fact that Kennesaw
This is actually a sick call.
Their lead, but this, like you said, is a really sick call. Kennesaw State, I don't know whether they just don't think that Madison would have the goal to go for it or the damage, but either way, a snuck away primal fuel.
Try again. There you go.
There we go.
Third time's the charm.
Second time's the charm.
Was it?
Second time, yeah, it's definitely the second time.
Uh-huh.
And I will call you a liar. I will call you a liar and slanderous if you say otherwise.
Okay, you got it. Second time's the charm.
Still, about second time's the charm. As we make our way over to this side of the map. Now that the Scorpion is gone, Fire Giant has come out to play, and Kennesaw State look to try and start this up. This is a very aggressive call here. They force out the Ramo very early, and look how low this Fire Giant's gotten. Just that PvE damage. We're going to see whether or not Raji can steal it. Kennesaw are able to go ahead and grab it. Now they're looking to try and pick up the pieces of Madison going in. No ace. Cannot find someone down the backside. The Ram is just too much damage to deal with at this point in time. But look at the Medusa going on through. The crit's online, the crit hits big, and the crit hits hard enough to take one down. 2 members have fallen for 1. Raijin Thunder crashing in is just to try and buy time at this point. 3 members going down. Fire Giant on the side of Kennesaw State. The world is their oyster.
And I hope you like seafood, because there's going to be a lot of oysters. Take a lot of towers, which make you a lot of money, and you can buy a lot of oysters. Anyway, there's a tower here, and now it's dead. And now there's a Phoenix here, and it's probably going to die too. The little energy talisman proc off the Kappa. We love that interaction. And this Phoenix is going down.
And there's absolutely no contest. I think Madison learned from last time that they probably shouldn't try and do that. Like, they've still got a couple towers remaining, but at the same time, they could still take a huge amount of damage onto the Titan if they were to defend poorly in that spot. But just going back to the oysters things, you've actually had an oyster? They don't taste great.
I don't believe so.
It tastes like eating a shoe insole.
I can't say I've ever eaten a shoe insole either.
Also, don't chew oysters. You're basically just sort of
you're supposed to swallow them, right?
Yeah. Oh, they're not great. They're not personally great.
It's like taking a slimy Advil.
Kinda, yeah.
Without
it's about
pain
4
killing
times the
effects.
size.
It's
about 4 times the size, though. Still, seafood aside, this is an all-you-can-eat buffet in terms of just jungle farm for Kennesaw State. I do wonder
What's
then.
the XP lead?
XP lead, 18,000. And
the
11,000
humanity.
gold lead. Which gets me onto the question of what would the jungle buffs taste like if you were to cook them?
So there's
like
a
Draga,
manticore.
I'm thinking seafood. I'm thinking Draga's got to be like some kind of like seafood.
Sea creature.
I'm thinking like, I'm thinking like
he's on the beach.
Like
after all.
crustacean. I mean, I'm thinking like a crab. I'm thinking like crab.
I was gonna go
like
turtle.
Lobster.
Because he's got like a big old back, right? It's like kind of like a shell.
I see it. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Another fun fact: did you know that the Galapagos turtle was actually so delicious that none of them were able to make it back to London for study? They all got eaten. Apparently, they tasted just like better than any other food that they could compare it to. None of them made it back to London for study, so they all got eaten.
Poor turtles, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
I guess they were dead either way.
So delicious.
Yeah, you literally can't help eating something delicious. Exactly. I'll apologize to my pizza later.
I mean, you can try it, but we see here Kennesaw State just going through the motions right now of sorting out what they do with this Fire Giant. They push up the right side. They've taken down the towers. Now they're looking at the potential siege here. With the Raijin, there is still a good hold here, but I'm not so sure with the level disparity right now that Madison are going to be able to hold too much. They do clear out the wave, but the focus from Kennesaw here, just poke down that Phoenix, get it to about get it down about 60%. Let it hit.
They're not going to engage until they're ready.
Again, because look what Not Ace is doing.
Yeah, they're not going to engage in left until they're ready in mid, and they force the rotation. Collision is rotated. That's a Mage SSB. Sobek plucked just off the mark, but the Phoenix is going down quick.
It's just being destroyed. Everything from Kennesaw State is all about space creation, but once this Phoenix is gone, Madison State have nowhere to run but back to the Titan to try and defend. Norse picks up Riam, and that's one of the front lines gone. Gingy takes down the second. It's only the damage dealers left, and it's only going to be 2 of them at this point in time. The Ryan will roll to try and buy as much time as they can, but the Titans being focused down. Kennesaw State, they're done. They're saying no more. We're the victors here. 3-0, clean set. Kennesaw State are your finals first place champions.
Very convincing game 3 SSB. The other games were a little bit closer, but this one was just Kennesaw from open and shut. I mean, just an absolute show put on by the boys over there at Kennesaw. And you know, Gingy goes undying that game. Norse basically split pushes the entire game to get a huge gold lead while his team's winning 4v5s, and that's just incredible. It really shows the degree to which the Kennesaw team had control over this game.
It really, really did. And the best part about it is we got to see them play over these 3 games, that same consistent mentality. It didn't matter what kind of gods they were on, what gods they were going up against. They had a game plan. As soon as it gets to us grouping up, we will win fights. It felt a lot like the old Sanguine team, where they were just the best team fight team around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really did feel inevitable once it got to the late game stages. But SSB, it's been awesome. A really fun finals and a great performance out of the Kennesaw team. But I mean, there's not much more to say about this game. It was really a show put on by Kennesaw and a clean 3-0 victory in the Albion Giants finals.
It certainly was on that side of things. So commiserations are in order for Madison, but congratulations to Kennesaw State. We're going to throw it back on over the desk to bring this one home.
Thank you again, Blur and Illy, for a wonderful cast. And yeah, as we were saying there, that's a clean 3-0 sweep, and they touched on a little bit, but Gingy having an amazing set. I think looking here, 1 death between game 1, 2, and 3, and just pretty clinical overall by Kennesaw.
Yeah, Kennesaw deciding that, we let them have a little bit of fun in game number 2, but, here, game number 3, we're coming down to the wire. We want to secure ourselves our victory for the first ever AGL Collegiate League champions, and, they did it in pretty convincing fashion, and with basically 3 essentially different team comps and team strategies. I think the only consistent, we saw 3 different hunters, a couple different supports, different mids, different solos, different jungles. So able to do it, and able to do it with a lot of different picks as well.
Yeah, no, such a wonderful set there. And as much as we got to praise, I do want to take a little bit for Madison. They had not the best game 3. They did kind of get a little bit of that steamroll effect of that snowball that can happen in Smite Season 8. But for that 1 and 2, they played some great, had some wonderful picks. They tried to show us a lot as well. And like I said, they were undefeated up until this, only losing 1 game in the regular season, 1 game in the playoffs. So both teams did really well. But yeah, Kennesaw just coming out on top. Clinical game 3, making sure this put away in a clean 3-0 set.
Yeah, and not just both of these teams. A big shout out to all of our collegiate teams that joined us here and made our collegiate league such a big success here for the first season for us. So hoping to have even more teams sign up here coming up for the next season here. But that's going to pretty much wrap up this season with Kennesaw, taking home that first place.
Yeah, shout outs to Kennesaw, and as to kind of vocalize what Normal was saying, thank you again so much for those who've been here with not just the Collegiate League, but all the rest. I know that we might have a couple of some fun games planned right before we get into the next season, but thank you all so much for hanging with us, not just today, but this whole split. And for tonight cast, we're going to call it there, and you guys have a great night.